We wanted to make sure everybody checked in. It is February 17th, 2026. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. As we start every meeting, we'll start off with good chaplain prayer and the pledges. Mr. Gary Jenkins, please come forward.
I say good evening, everybody, and to our mayor and the council members and everyone here. Will you join with me in a word of prayer? Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we bow before you to say thank you for this day and for this opportunity to come together and assemble to take care of the business of the city. We ask you to endow the council with wisdom and knowledge and understanding that they may operate and take care of the function of the business of the city in a way that will glorify you and be edifying to the inhabitants of this city. We thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us. We ask you to bless our council members, our mayor, all of the elected officials, and to remember our first responders, our firefighters, and police officers. We thank you for the people that are gathered here in this chamber today, and we ask for your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Repeat after me the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So I see no proclamations or pledges on the agenda, so we will move right into public comment. So I want to make sure all of us are on the same page. There's some specific rules we follow. There's some agenda items. The one that talks about the building guidelines for the data center is item G. So that's a non-action item. There's not going to be a vote on that, but that allows everybody public input, and we will take public comment. But the discussions on item G are specifically for the building guidelines that somebody would want to propose for a data center project. Any other comment is public comment that needs to be done now. Is everybody good with that? Does everybody understand it? If somebody comes up on item G and they're giving an opinion about a data center, and not talking about the building guidelines, it's not allowed, and we'll ask you to step back. But I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that, and you know where you sit, because I think the last time we had this discussion, people got a little confused. All right, so as we look at it, if you're talking about the building guidelines, you will have public comment on the regular agenda in item G. Otherwise, your public comment about anything comes up now. With that, I'll start off. Heather, do we have any public comment? Let me ask you, how many of you got signed up so far?
Approximately 10.
Okay, so everybody's allowed 3 minutes. You'll get a warning at the final minute. You will have 3 minutes only, so everybody needs to understand we've got at least 30 to probably 35 minutes of public comment coming up. With that, let's call the first one, Heather.
Cheryl Salvato.
Cheryl Salvato.
Okay. Dawn Wellen.
Dawn. Let me read this, Dawn, before you start. Public comment. Members of the public may raise issues or concerns not listed on the regular agenda during this time. To participate, please sign in with the city clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Speakers will be called in order they signed in. When speaking, citizens must speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating your name and address or just your single-member district number, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less. Dawn, you're on.
Thank you.
Sure.
My name is Don Wellen, District 5. I would like for the City Council to address a letter to ICE with copies to appropriate parties. My proposed letter, subject to your edits and improvements, as follows. Dear ICE, San Angelo will cooperate with ICE. However, we expect ICE to honor the Constitution, adhere to due process, and not enter homes without proper warrants signed by a judge. I then quote the Constitution's Articles, Amendments 5 and 14. In other words, ICE will not randomly stop people because their skin are brown, they speak a foreign language, they shop for construction items, or other such instances. ICE will stay away from churches, schools, and voting areas. ICE will only use properly trained agents that will only target the worst criminals and adopt the de-escalation methods practiced by the San Angelo police, and ICE will act in a humane, constitutional manner. Sincerely, letter ends. My comments. This whole situation, in my opinion, was born of a lie. We only want to get the worst of the worst lie. Only 7% of all arrested by ICE are the bad ones. Going to get the worst of the worst? It's a lie. By 93%. But still our president calls them murderers, thugs, rapists, or worse. They're eating cats and dogs. It's a lie. We are only concerned for your safety. Safety first, another lie. The data shows that violent crimes by a margin of 2 to 1 are committed by U.S. citizens, not illegals. If the main concern of these politicians is truly safety, then use ICE money to beef up local police who go after all violent criminals, illegal or not. We endure the lie of safety first while ICE erodes the public trust. Warrantless searches, beating people after smashing their car windows, killing protesters, mass goons pulling people off the street, and throwing good people in jail. I do not want that in San Angelo. But the big ICE machine tells us we are safer. They turn on the propaganda and add even more lies to obscure or justify their behavior. She's a domestic terrorist, lie. He was attacking ICE officers, lie. ICE agents always adhere to best practices, lie. People are getting hurt, families are being torn apart, and children are in prison, all because of one lie after another. Whatever happened to thou shalt not bear false witness? Thou shalt not lie. I'm asking our city council to please send a letter. We don't need to hurt the people in San Angelo by ignoring the Constitution and the enactment of one lie after another. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Heather, next public comment.
Caitlin Wiley.
Say it again.
Caitlin Wiley.
I'm Caitlin Wiley of District Number 5. Mayor and City Council members, in light of tonight's discussion later about design guidelines and conditional use processes, I would like to address why codified enforceable standards embedded in zoning offer greater long-term certainty than advisory guidance. Major infrastructure projects require long-term clarity. A Chapter 380 agreement can define economic participation, but it does not substitute for enforceable zoning limits. Brown Rock embedded key data center protections into its planned unit development strategy, a defined megawatt cap, defined building footprint and height limits, closed-loop cooling requirements, buffering and screening protections, public amendment protections. Those provisions create durable certainty. They protect residents from incremental expansion, they protect the developer from shifting expectations, and they protect the city from future disputes. By contrast, if land use guardrails are not embedded in zoning, future expansion debates become reactive and contentious. San Angelo can demonstrate responsible governance by codifying clear, enforceable limits before or alongside any incentive discussions. This approach strengthens trust, reduces friction, and stabilizes long-term expectations, and that is a prudent path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley. Next.
Richard Summers.
Call them again. Oh, they're there.
Richard Summers.
My name is Richard Summers, and I live in District 5. If the city is considering a Chapter 380 agreement, a state-authorized economic incentive tool used to reduce project costs, then it's reasonable to ask what reciprocal community benefits are being secured in return to the city from this developer. In other jurisdictions, large-scale data center projects receiving economic incentives included structural commitments such as workforce development partnerships with local colleges and universities, renewable energy investments, infrastructure resilience upgrades, and direct community contributions. In San Angelo, that could mean collaboration with Angelo State University or Howard College for workforce training and certification programs. It could mean targeted infrastructure improvements or renewable capacity support aligned with long-term community needs. Incentives are not inherently problematic, but they should align public benefit with private benefits or with private investment. If the city reduces costs for this project, what tangible, measurable community returns will be secured in exchange? Also, at a city summit event earlier today, a San Angelo data center project spokesperson allegedly suggested that the proposed 4.5 million square foot facility would use roughly the same amount of water as 12 homes, and that diesel generators would hardly be perceptible even when a person was standing next to them. If those representations are accurate, I respectfully request that underlying engineering studies, water modeling assumptions, and noise attenuation analysis supporting those particular statements especially be made publicly available and incorporated into any data center guideline deliberations, particularly prior to any potential conditional use public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Heather, number 5.
Steph Baca. Steph Baca.
All right, let's
Heather Wiley.
Good evening. My name is Heather Wiley, and I'm a resident of District 3. My comment concerns the Skybox Data Center. Data centers require enormous amounts of electricity. The Electric Reliability Council of Texas has warned that the state is experiencing rapid load growth and tightening reserve margins, with peak demand rising dramatically over the next several years, in part to industrial users like data centers. Some ERCOT projections show peak demand rising toward levels that could nearly double historic norms by 2030, just 4 years from now. There is also concern about grid demand caused by these data centers this summer. As new projects are added to the Texas grid, the scale of increase requires substantial new generation and transmission infrastructure. The World Economic Forum has noted that rapid data center growth presents significant challenges for grid stability and pricing, especially in a deregulated energy market like Texas. Keeping this information in mind, how will the City of San Angelo ensure that Skybox funds the transmission and infrastructure upgrades required for its operations rather than shifting those costs to residential customers? Will agreements with Skybox require that the company secures dedicated generation or on-site power solutions? How will the city protect ratepayers if grid upgrades are required? What limits, if any, are being considered on the number of high-load facilities like crypto mining or AI training allowed in our area? How are you going to continue to monitor the water demands of this facility as its water use is connected to its energy use? Will the city negotiate a community benefit agreement to offset potential impacts on residents? San Angelo residents deserve assurance that economic development won't compromise grid reliability, water security, or household affordability. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley. Number 7, Heather.
China Young.
I know she's here. I walked in with her.
China Young.
Mayor and council members, my name's China Young, and I'm a resident of single-member District 4. I'm speaking today about equal access and public trust. Since before your final vote to rezone the land for the data center on January 13th, the public has been increasingly adamant about hearing directly from representatives of Skybox data centers or affiliated development, investment, or infrastructure partners. We, the people, have been consistently shut out of those conversations. At some point in recent weeks, a colleague of mine was told that by a reputable city official that representatives of Skybox would be here tonight. Once the agenda was released, we learned that we would not have access to Skybox, but rather Westwood, a consultant group. And while I look forward to hearing what Westwood has to say, I can't help but feel deceived. Another colleague of mine attended the summit, the economic summit earlier today, the one in which Mr. Michael Looney claimed that the community would be able to have access to Skybox. At our own cost, of course. My colleague that was there said that Skybox was barely even a part of that conversation, so that just felt like another dangled carrot and more deception. I ask once again how the city is ensuring that constituents have equal access to information and engagement with Skybox or any of the entities looking to capitalize on our community's resources rather than learning about developments after decisions have effectively been made outside of the appropriate direct public involvement. Transparency and fairness are essential to legitimacy, especially for projects with long-term community impact. Additionally, the City of San Angelo must begin coordinating regionally with multiple data centers, including ones in Big Spring and surrounding areas, tapping into the same aquifers that are already stressed even before these additional facilities are there to take those resources. We need to look at the impact beyond just our own community. Something to consider. The SAISD board hosts a pre-agenda workshop the week ahead of their meetings to better involve and include the community in what they discuss and what decisions they make. I've recently learned that there are city councils in Texas that use a similar formula for their city council meetings, hosting a workshop with the citizens ahead of a regular meeting. This promotes inclusion and collaboration with the citizenry. So on record, I would respectfully request that this city council adopt a similar practice so as to rebuild the public trust and reinstate what it means to be a nation and a community of the people, by the people, and for the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, China. Number 8,
Jamal Schumpert.
Jamal.
Jamal Shumpert, SMD3. I just came up here to, I guess, make a correction. Last week, I said that the pipes weren't included in the plans. They actually were. I just had to zoom in on my stuff about 1,000, but they were included. And I also wanted to say thank you guys for having this meeting in the night. I know that people are going to fuss and say some things you don't like, but believe it or not, y'all are living up to who you said you were on the campaign, and I appreciate that a lot. Thank you again. I can't stay. I do have comments. I know you're wondering, but my son is trying out for shot put in discus this week, so I got to help him. But thank y'all.
Thank you, Jamal. Number 9, Heather.
Joseph Phillips.
My name is Joseph Phillips, like she said. I'm not entirely sure what district I'm on, but I'm over there on Spalding next to Polium, so I'm pretty close. I'm just a college student that's trying to make his way in the world and, you know, make a living for myself. And the Skybox Data Center, you know, offers great economic perks. I saw 27 million annual fees and 100 long-term jobs. That's great. But corporates exploit pollution hikes. There's health risks and vulnerable spots and resource drains. Texas faces a looming water crisis. Officials warn of severe shortages by 2030, with aquifers like Ogala depleting rapidly from overuse and drought. Our limited fresh water reserves are running dry. Our children being able to thrive, not begging corporations for scraps, but harvesting their own food from soil that they can nurture themselves. Our precious fresh water dwindles and distant giants, these corporate giants, drain what's left. We are teaching the people and our children to depend on a system that exploits us. And for what? San Angelo is a town that is beautiful because of its community and family-owned businesses. Getting this data center built will only be a quick solution that contributes to the thumb that keeps the majority in poverty. We need to play chess, not checkers. We, the people, need to reclaim our future through community-owned knowledge and skills, protecting our limited resources for generations ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather, number 10.
Jen Jesperson. Sorry if I said that wrong. Okay.
Pull that mic down. Pull the microphone down.
And you can pull it down.
The tip
There
down
you
here. Perfect.
There. Can you hear me now? I am for the AI data center.
Your name and
and-
your district, if you don't mind.
Sorry, 284 Edinburgh Road.
Honey, pull
Island Road.
the mic closer to you, and you're very soft-spoken. Thank you.
How's there? Right there? Is that good? Can you hear me now?
I can.
I am for the data center, and there's a lot of positives with that data center coming along. And one of the reasons I wanted to speak tonight, because I hear the sentiments of, our community members, and I think those are fair points that they make, right? And I'm sure you will consider those. I work in AI every day, all day long. Every day, all day long. And I can tell you that it's coming, and it's here, and we can't be fearful of it. We got to solve for it, and we got to address those concerns behind us. But the question that I would have is, how do you round up most of us and upskill us? How do you take the workforce that's in play and get them ready, right? Because if you're over 50, you won't see the impact probably in the next, 10, 15 years. You're going to see it in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. I think that everybody that has an iPhone or any kind of phone right now, you've been using AI. The AI's been using you, by the way, for the last 10 years. It's just now that it's front and center. So I do hope that you create and you push those larger corporations that I do think that can bring economic development to our town. And I do hope that you address those concerns. But I would look to you to say, how are you going to upskill and bring San Angelo to the 21st century, the 22nd century, because it's here. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Jatan Giese.
John?
Jatan Giese, District 5. If the potential data center claims to use only X amount of water, can there be a cap on them? Not a price increase, a shutting the tap off after a certain amount of water. I see different state officials as recently as this month talking about water shortages still, saying that we're in a 6-year drought. We talked about the differences in the data centers and the AI processing, different water and electric use, not expanding the footprint, but instead upgrading the technology. Is there anything that relates to what they can do inside the building once it's permitted and built? Meaning, can they upgrade and then the water and electric uses increase significantly? Also, has a fine particulate matter study been obtained? What guarantees do the citizens have that our water and electric prices won't increase significantly? The potential data center tax revenue has been touted as a reason for us to want it here. How much will the citizens' properties taxes be reduced with that? Please give us information like you want us to vote on it and we get a good outcome. All right, this is a different subject. Over the years, I've seen many items on the agenda that authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. I've tried to find out what exactly this means or entails. And is there any oversight? Does it include who gets a contract, the final pricing on a contract, including any adds or changes? Or is it just purely monotonous paperwork that someone has to do? This is not personal to you, Mr. Venezuela. Thank you for your years that you've committed to our city. With the city manager's position being vacated this summer, I'm having a hard time seeing these items being given over to the new city manager to work out the details in award contracts when some of them may happen after we get the change made. And no time to even learn the ropes. I'm sure the new manager will be vetted, but it just seems that business as usual in regards to this maybe needs some adjustments during the time of transition. It may sound like I'm anti-growth. I'm not, I'm really not. I just feel some questions need to be answered. Hopefully, the plan presentation will answer some of these questions today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Number 12.
That's all at this time.
All right, so with that, we're going ahead and move into the consent agenda. We will go down here, and I will start down with Mary, and if you have any item you would like to pull. Karen? Patrick?
Item F.
Patrick wants to pull item F. I want to pull item C. Harry?
Nothing to pull.
Joe? Councilman Hebert? All right, so I'll look for a motion. I've got a first from Harry Thomas, a second from Joe Self. Is there any public comment on A, B, D, or E?
Yes. Jatan Geesey for D and E.
Okay,
Hi, Todd Geesey, District 5. With the grants,
Hardly hear you.
okay. With the grants from the state being considered, items D and E on consent agenda, what are we giving in return? This isn't just about money. I feel that privacy could be being compromised in the trade-off.
is that it? Okay. Any other public comment on any of those items? All right, so we'll look for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? When none opposed, items A, B, D, and E pass 7-0. Now we'll move to item C. Consider approving a contract with Settle Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless and its related entities for purchase of a wireless services and products under Direct Telephone CTSA 000 or 003 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Bucky,
Yes, sir.
enlighten what this is. I think it's really important that maybe the public hear what we're getting out of this agreement.
Yeah, I really think they should. They should know. So SAPD officers currently don't have smartphones as standard issue equipment. And they've been getting by with the equipment such as iPod touches. Well, we've kind of run up against the wall with that with software updates. And after looking around for replacement devices and the cost of those, I just decided to reach out to Verizon and see how they could help us. And they really put pencil to paper, and they're going to lower our current existing cell phone plans enough to give us 80 lines of service where our bill is going to be cheaper overall. So we're still going to get DIR pricing. They're just going to cut us, they're going to lower, give us discounts on those rates so we can afford those same lines, those 80 new lines, for actually, our bill's actually going to be cheaper. Not only that, they're going to give us a credit per line so we can afford the accessories, such as the phone cases and the protective screens. But as far as, you have anything you want to add?
I think it's really going to help push forward the mission of public safety. And this, to the point of Verizon, obviously they wanted to make money, and that's kind of where they started. But then when they realized they tried to source products for us that we were using those iPod touches or any service phones without service, and they can't find them. So that's where I think it really pushes forth that mission.
So now every policeman will have a phone, correct?
That is correct.
Right. It will be a city phone. Now, second question there is, our current program, some of the AT&T phones have a FirstNet, which gives them a priority in emergency situations, correct? Or when the bloom of a tower is full, the FirstNets have priority. Will any of these Verizons have that same priority, say we get into a mass event?
Yes, sir. Verizon has their own flavor of FirstNet. It's a priority service to first responders.
Sweet. All right. With that, that's answered my questions. Anybody else have any questions? I'll make a motion to approve. Can I get a second? I got a second from Karen, first from me. Any public comment on item C?
None.
All right, with all that, take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item C carries 7-0. All right, we'll move to item F. Consider renewing a memorandum of understanding with the Bureau of Reclamation and Texas Parks and Wildlife for the management of public hunting at the Twin Buttes Reservoir and authorizing city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Carl White, you're on.
Yes, sir. Do you have any questions?
There we go. Hey, Carl. How long is the memorandum, and then what has been your feedback from it? And do you think it's been a good benefit to the city to have them handle that?
Yes, we've had this in place since 2016. We had a 5-year MOU, and then we renewed it for another 5 years. So it's about to expire at the end of March. To be honest, this has been a perfect situation for us. Before 2016, it was much of a no man's land out there. Game wardens would go out there periodically to patrol, and our city police force wasn't sure they could enforce ordinances out there because it's not even in the ETJ, that property. So this has been the best thing we could do regarding that property. So under this, the properties will be managed under Texas Parks and Wildlife Department under their public hunting lands program. So people who do want to go out there to do recreation can get a general access permit. It's very affordable for the year. I think it's less than $20. They can get a all access permit. With the general access lets them go out there and fish and do the trails. The full access allows them to do hunting out there, and there's different areas for different kinds of hunting. The game warden, so TPWD and the game wardens patrol the area. They enforce laws out there. It's been a great situation for us.
I was also told it's helped kind of keep it clean and looks good out there, and a lot of people are able to use it and not leave trash around and just dump stuff out there.
Yes.
Has that been your...
It still happens, but it's a much better situation than it used to be. And they also go out there and do some controlled burnings, clear some areas around the fence to keep the fire spreading if it does out there. So it's been a great arrangement for the city.
Good. That's all I've got. I move to approve. Nobody else has questions?
So I've got a first from Patrick. I need a second. We'll give a second to Karen. Any public comment on item F, Heather?
None.
With none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item F carries 7-0. That will conclude the consent agenda. We'll move into regular agenda. Comments regarding the items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. To participate, please sign in with the city clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Speakers will be called in order they signed in. Comments are limited to less than 3 minutes. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. We'll move to item A. Consider approving tiers incentive requests for 3 South Tiers private projects totaling $275,000. Item 1, 402 West Beauregard. Item 2, 421 West Tuig. Item 3, 40 West Tuig. Presentation by Planning and Development Services Director Aaron Vanoy.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Manager, and City Council. Aaron Vanoy, Planning and Development Services Director. Our first item is recommendations for funding in the South Tiers District. We had 3 applicants this cycle, 402 West Beauregard, 421 West Tuig, and 40 West Tuig. The top 2 being a $100,000 request and the next one being $75,000 request for a total of $275,000 out of a $1.7 million fund availability. So we'll go into the specifics. So at 402 West Beauregard, this is the Angora Hotel. They are looking at doing some safety upgrades as well as a few more aesthetic upgrades on their property. They have a project that's estimated at $143,000. Their proposed match being more than the 25% of the 43.9 and the funding request of the 100,000. So they're going to do some egress, landscaping, parking lot resurface, and signage. So here's a shot of what they look like today, and you can see they've done a lot of work on this project already. They did receive some tiers funding in the past for some items, but they continue to want to keep the property looking good and continuing to move in the right direction. You can see they're going to add some signage here for some of the cross streets so they can be seen a little bit more as people are traveling around in the downtown. They are going to upgrade some of the sidewalks and the landscape areas around here. You can see this is on the side where Beauregard is, as well as here on Beauregard to help the parking lot just a little bit. That's actually on, that's on Abe Street going south. You can see the do not enter sign going the other way. They also have this safety item that they want to help fix for the fire marshal is the egress. The stairs are a little narrow. They're also a little older, and so they're going to come back with the appropriate size stairs and get that fixed as well. So that's going to be a great addition for their hotel. Next one is 421 West Tuig. Again, a project cost of $130,000 with a proposed match of $30,000 with a funding request of $100,000. So they do meet their 25% match. They're looking at some paving, some fencing, landscaping, window repair, and historic preservation. So this is a property over here on Tuig, formerly a house, and then it was a dental office at some point in its history. Now it's getting ready for some new occupancy and a rebirth to that beautiful structure there. They are going to add a wider driveway here at the front. We've already talked about the tree there. If it has to leave, they are going to plant another tree in the same area so that they don't lose the tree. But they are going to widen that so that they have a little bit more parking in the front. You can see on the overhead here, they actually do have a little bit of parking here in the back, I believe. And then they're going to add this fence around here, which you can see here on the right side. And then on the inside, they're going to be actually restoring all the old floors and the historic preservation of the floors and the things on the inside of the building. It's going to be occupied by multiple businesses, so that's a plus for that structure. The next one is 40 West Tuig, commonly known as the Spur Building. It has a proposed project cost of $184,000. They've requested $75,000, and so their proposed match is a significant $109,000. They do have one elevator in the building, but this elevator does not go all the way to the top floor. You can see that they actually have 5 stories here. Their first elevator stops on the 4th floor, but they do have somebody that's looking at occupancy on that 5th floor, but they have to put an elevator in. As you know, about 3 years ago, the Tiers Board and City Council added ADA items to their list as being very high, and so our Tiers Board took that into consideration and did recommend funding for that. So these did go to the Tiers Board. You can see the dollars that we have currently. If we funded them fully today, we'd still have 1.5 in the South Tiers. With that, staff did recommend approval to the Tiers Board in the amounts that are listed there. The Tiers Board did recommend approval on January 27th, 2026. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So we'll start this off, Aaron. It's great to see the Tiers Fund being used to develop and improve what we have. There's some wonderful facilities there. Harry, this is in your district. I'll look for you to lead us a little bit on how you want to take this item.
Quite honestly, I think this is great. I did have one question that I visited with Shane on Friday about, and that was the 421 Tuig building, because the background information originally only had 115 to 130 in that total cost on that. And I believe there was some updated information, background information that evidently didn't get in our packet. So I'm comfortable with this, all 3 of them. And I'm pleased to see that with these 3 potential approvals, that we still got 1.5 in the South District, because that's been a struggle for many years. So I move to approve.
Tell you what, we'll hold the, let's see if I got questions all the way across. Hebert? Good. Mr. Self? Patrick? Karen? All right, so I have a first from Harry Thomas. Can I get a second? Second. Second from Joe Self. Heather, is there any public comment on this item? All right, with no public comment, we'll go for a vote. All those in favor of approving these 3 items, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item A carries 7-0. Move to item B. First reading and public hearing of an ordinance for 1, Z2527, a request for a zone change from general heavy commercial zoning district to the low-rise multifamily residential zoning district, and item 2, CP 25-03, a request to amend the comprehensive plan from industrial to neighborhood center located northwest of the intersection of East Avenue K and Duggan Street. Presentation made by Planning and Development Services Director Aaron Vanoy.
Thank you again, Mayor. This project here comes to us from Planning Commission. You can see the property here in red. This is going to be a project that's going to rezone and redo the vision plan. It's going to go from industrial and neighborhood center to just simply neighborhood center, and you'll see that split in just a moment. And then we're also looking at doing, my slide's incorrect there. That should be a zoning that is going from, that slide doesn't look exactly right, but apologies for that. So the vision plan, let me back up here for just a second. It's currently, let me just get to the right slide, and that might help us on before I talk zoning. So we are CGCH, and you can see that our vision plan is neighborhood center here on the right and industrial. We're bringing that neighborhood center over, and we're going here with an RM1. And let me go back to the original front slide. And so you can see there's the current zoning, but we are going to RM1 low-rise multifamily on that property. This is in District 3, Harry Thomas. It is in the neighborhood Fort Concho. We did send out our notices that are required to our 200-foot buffer. We received none in favor, none in opposition. Again, I'm going to go over that zoning again. This property right here below, we have rezoned that in the past few months to be RM1. We are rezoning that to RM1 as well. And you can see this has all been general commercial, heavy commercial, but some of the properties haven't developed that way. We believe RM1 is a good buffer between some of the traditional two-family residential. You can also see that this area was designed to go industrial, and that's because of some of the stuff that's on the other side of Metcalf, which is the next north-south road, but that has just not really changed that neighborhood over time. It has stayed historically residential, and we have more residential coming in to this, what we would call a node around the Oaks, Avenue L, even the Chadburn, and down to Avenue N area. So with that, staff did bring this forward to Planning Commission. We do recommend approval, changing the comprehensive plan from industrial to neighborhood center, and a rezoning from general commercial, heavy commercial to the zoning district of RM1, low-rise multifamily zoning. This is located there at the northwest intersection of Avenue K and Dugan. Planning Commission did hear parts of these cases. Once on December 15th, they heard the zoning and recommended approval. Then in February, which was scheduled for January, but we had a weather event, heard the comprehensive plan, and they recommended approval as well. And so it's forward to you guys tonight with those recommendations. With that, I'll be happy to answer any question.
Aaron, did those go through planning 7-0 unanimous?
I know that the comprehensive plan did, because we did have a full complement of commissioners, but I do believe the one in December was a 6-0 vote.
Okay, perfect. Once again, Harry, this falls within your district?
It does. I believe this developer already built some homes in that same area. And I can tell you, from my perspective, it's very well, it's a great improvement for that. So from my perspective, I think it's just great.
All right, awesome. So let me go down. Mary, have you got any questions? Karen?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm having a hard time with the map. If you could go to your larger scale map, that one, and
Yes,
just
ma'am.
use your cursor and tell us whether or not this is close to the cultural overlay that we created. Can you give us some relative idea of that proximity?
Yes, the cultural overlay is going to be to the north.
Okay.
The cultural overlay, I believe, starts at Highland on Highland and Oaks, and so that would be your cross street. I drive Oaks almost every day. I'm going to say that's about a half mile to the north, but it's just south of the Fort Concho area. This is in the Fort Concho, but this road that you can see these structures right here, that's actually Avenue L that goes just to the south of them. And so there's a major intersection there at Oaks and Avenue L, and then Metcalf is on the side over here. And then you actually have the South Concho River, and you have the Glenmore Park, the old fire training center, and the Lone Wolf Bridge as well.
Patrick? No questions. Joe? Mr. Hebert? All right. So I'll take a first from Harry Thomas, and Patrick had the second. Is there any public comment on that? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Any of those opposed? Item passes 7-0. We'll go to item C, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance for Z25-29, a request for a zone change from the zero lot line twin home and townhome residential zoning district to low-rise multifamily residential zoning district located across 33 lots along Skyview Lane. Presentation made by Planning and Development Services Director Aaron Vanoy.
Thank you again, Mayor. This is a case out of the Bluffs in District Number 6, Miss Mary Coffey. We are looking at going from RS3 zoning on this tract of land right here that's highlighted in red to a low-rise multifamily in RM1. Now, what you'll ask is the difference between RS3 and RM1. RS3 allows townhomes and single and zero lot lines, where RM1 allows multiple structure types within its zoning, all the way from a single-family house, single-family dwelling, duplexes, zero lot lines, townhomes, all those types of different structure types, and those are different than zoning. But the zoning will allow all those structure types. The difference between RS3 and RM1 is RM1 is typically a buffer zone between commercial, heavier uses, heavier traffic, like an arterial like FM 2288, those things to protect the neighborhood towards the back. I know y'all will have some questions about that as I go throughout. The other thing that I want you to look at is this property is already platted, and you can see all those addresses, and so those are the lot sizes. If the developer wanted to come back and change his housing style, say to a single-family house that doesn't fit that lot size, which some of them, I think most of them are right at 40 feet wide by about 75 feet deep, he would have to come back and replat. I would have to go back to Planning Commission, go through another review process. As I understand it from the developer, that's not his intent. He wants to continue on with the zero lot line housing that he has and finish out the development. So we did mail out 15 notices. I know that we have 3 that were mailed in. I want to say that the other one was right here at 6:05. I'm trying to find that. I know that our staff has taken a number of phone calls, and the opposition has been they really don't want that many homes back there primarily, and 2, it oversees. This is a higher elevation than here below, and so they do oversee over those homes at the bottom. And then I also think that there's some opposition that the difference between RM1 and RS3 is RM1, you're allowed short-term rentals by right, where RS districts, you can only have them one every 500 feet. And so that is an important distinction in this process today. So I do believe, and I think we do have some members in the audience today that want to come and have some discussion about this. So again, here we go with the zoning. RS3, zero lot line, twin home residential. You can see the single family there along Burlington, and Stratford goes back into the neighborhood. You just kind of get a little peek at some of the commercial. I've got a different map in just a moment. Of course, across the street has not been developed as of yet. This property has been vacant for decades, I would say. This is just a developer that has found a way to try to maximize, I think it's 1.7 acres. I could be wrong in the exact size, but I think it's 1.7 acres. And how does putting in a road and water and sewer, how do they pencil out enough structures to make it worth their while? Here's that bigger map that you can see. Of course, this is Sherwood Way. This is FM 2288. Obviously, this is what we would call the HEB development. We've got a number of new developments coming across the road. I think right in this area is where the new Coleman County State Bank is. And you can see that we have this general commercial zoning district and office commercial just to the south of this property here. And again, from planning principles, you try to do buffering in layers as you try to get back and protect your RS1. You can see one of the structure types here. You can see that this is on what I would call the west side of the road. The east side of the road has when we took this picture, they have not started building structures there yet. So looking at our analysis, I did keep our analysis in here for the presentation that the proposed multifamily zoning is ideal along a major arterial and allows a buffer from commercial to the south. The proposed zone change towards multifamily residential does not change the type of housing, as the lots are currently platted for townhouses and zero lot line, which would be allowed under both current and proposed zonings. The multifamily development is compatible with the neighborhood vision plan as long as it's a low-rise multifamily development. Now, again, he's not doing multiple structures per lot. He's doing one structure per lot, and I'll let him kind of explain what his vision is on that if he's signed up tonight for public comment. But multifamily in our current comprehensive plan is compatible with the neighborhood vision plan. With that, staff did recommend approval of this to the Planning Commission to go from the RS3 low-rise multifamily, or excuse me, the RS zoning district to the low-rise multifamily residential RM1 located on the lots 1 through 33 on Skyview Lane. The Planning Commission did hear this on February the 2nd, and they did approve 7-0 on February 2nd. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Yeah, so let me start on this one, and then we'll kick it over, and this is in Mary's district, and I know there's been a lot of phone calls on this, and I've talked with the developer also, but let's go. They already have the right to build this.
Correct. They have the right to
There's-
build.
We're not stopping the build here.
Correct.
The question is if we change the zoning, will they be allowed STRs?
And the answer would be yes, if
Okay.
that is part of
Unlimited.
the zoning change,
Right.
yes. They would be allowed by right.
Okay. So as we move forward, and Mary, I'm going to kick this over to you in a minute because you've had a lot of feedback from your group on that. So I just need everyone here to understand, you can't stop these from coming, all right? These are already by right zoned. And if I'm not wrong, did he have this original zoning to begin with? And then it went back and we're trying to take it back to an original zoning from what it was originally? Maybe?
That's a good question. I know we did a number of, we had to look at a couple of variances. I know we went through the plat process. I believe it's been RS3 for a while now, but I'm not sure that it went from RM1 to RS3, but maybe
Okay.
it did. I don't remember us doing a zoning process for this yet.
Regardless, I had that in
Yeah.
in a conversation with the developer about how it was zoned at one time, that it moved out, and
Yeah.
that's irrelevant at this point. So right now, we're looking at the zoning and so what other changes other than an STR would fall into this that might create some heartburn for somebody, Aaron?
Well, only if the developer chose to change his development style, meaning that houses that have not been developed yet, he comes back with a plat and maybe combines lots, and there's no real reason to do that, but combines lots together into one large lot and puts multiple structures per one lot, almost like a low-rise, like a small apartment complex, if you would. That's certainly not their intention at this time. Now, the zoning would allow that in the future, whether he owned it or not. But that's really the differences between the zoning districts are. That's an anomaly we have in our zoning ordinance, that we have this catch-all in RM1 that allows multiple structure types. That's a challenge that we have all the time. We also, 2 years ago, said that, all right, if you're RS, you wouldn't be allowed a short-term rental by right. You'd go through a conditional use process. If you're RM or commercial, you would be allowed to have short-term rentals by right. And so then when you get to a smaller piece of property like this that has multiple structures in a smaller area, that's when the conflict starts coming into the ordinance as well as in the neighborhood of how do we resolve this to allow the development to continue, but they still get to maximize what they're trying to do with the land.
And more than likely, these will be sold prior to even completion of the build-out, so we see that. And if the owner wants to rent them out, they can rent them out. They just can't do a short-term rental, correct?
That is correct. They can do a long-term rental. They wouldn't be allowed a short-term
All
rental.
right, they could do it in the time frame on that, the difference between the two?
30 days.
Right, so if they went into and did a long-term rental, that would be 31 days and beyond.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. With that, Mary, we're going to kick it over to you. It's in the middle of your home district.
Aaron, you were saying the difference between RS1 and RS3. Would you repeat that difference too? I'm just going to go through a channel here.
Sure. So RM1.
I mean RS1 to RS3.
RS1?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the RS1 is just single-family residential.
Right.
It allows one structure, one lot.
Right, okay.
RS3, now in our minds, we still think it as single-family residential because a single family is going to live there.
Right.
In the zoning ordinance, it looks at it as what is the structure type that can be on an RS3. In this case, it's zero lot line and townhomes and sometimes twin homes as well. But those are really how the structures align to the property lines.
Okay. On the RM1, there's not a limit to how many, I realize this is already platted. I'm just thinking of setting any kind of precedence and what that could do, to other developments out there. But RM1 would also, it would include townhomes, not reducing anybody or taking them out of that. But it would also open the door for apartments, two or more stories, say duplexes or something like that. So that would, I just want to make sure we're clear on that. And by doing this, they could still build just like we have right here, right? But the main sticking point, I think, with STR is the STR, that rental part. Okay. I want to hear what, I think there's some citizens here, and I'd like to hear what they have to say, because then I think I can answer some of these questions as we go forward. But yeah, there's kind of a lot to this, and want to make sure that everyone is allowed to be heard. But thank you, Aaron, for all of this.
Thank you.
So there's a lot here to unpack, so let's go ahead and start down the dais. Karen, any questions?
No questions. I would echo that my concerns are the same as yours and Mary's. The STRs by right is concerning to me.
All right, Patrick?
Aaron, I know there's been a lot going on with talks with developers and trying to make it affordable for them to build so we can help affordable housing and things like that. With the way it's already platted and this change, that would help, that would not change how much it would cost to develop them, if I'm looking at it correctly. Like the sewer, water, all that, it still supplies the same amount of homes that are currently platted, correct?
Correct. All those lot costs are already there.
Right.
They chose to change that up based on changing the lot sizes, then that may impact their overall cost for their construction. But as far as development for that piece of land, those costs have already been sunk into that.
Change it. And then on your picture of the one, what is that in the background? The home apartment, what is that on your other picture? That one?
This
on the
one here?
right-hand side? Yes.
To our knowledge, it's just a zero lot line home.
Okay. So that's one of them on the other side of the street already?
Yes, that's on the western side of the street. Yes, sir.
So similar to what would potentially could go there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
And then on your diagram, left-hand side, you still have RS1 below that in between the commercial, right? So this wouldn't exactly be buffered between all of it. There is still some regular
Yes, but it's,
right down there.
if you can see this drainage structure right there, that's an unbuildable
Okay.
piece of land. In fact, the original developer has that designated as open space, so it's not even able to be developed on.
Gotcha.
And so it is really just a buffer space. While yes, we have it zoned as RS1, that really doesn't impact that piece of property.
And the left-hand side is already zoned RS?
Yes, in 2000, it was zoned RS1. I would say that was an inappropriate zoning, but it's what we have, and so until we have somebody that wants to come develop it, we will leave it that way.
With your expertise, why has that area not been developed so far? Both those areas, left-hand side and that current one we're looking at there?
I think one challenge is you've got a major arterial here that gets a lot of traffic, although it's getting more and more traffic every day. Two, this was an elevated piece that there is a lot of drainage in the area. Of course, you can see drainage that comes up there, and you can see drainage that comes in there. That's challenging. It is a small piece of property. And if you were to do traditional single-family residentials that were these sizes, it doesn't pencil out. By the time you put in a road, water, sewer, drainage, whatever that may be, to do that. And the other thing in our ordinance, in our subdivision ordinance, since that's an arterial, you cannot have driveways directly onto FM 2288. So you have to have that internal road somehow. I know multiple people have looked at the property. This developer, we went through probably 3 or 4 pre-development meetings until we got to a site plan that worked for all the development teams from fire prevention, engineering, services, planning, building permits to do that, and we still had to do some things there. I think it's just a difficult piece of land, and obviously, anytime you can look at areas that are close to amenities for people and that are looking for maybe that structure type of a smaller house, smaller yard, less maintenance, and they're closer to these types of amenities down here, I think it can be a good thing. We know through our 2 housing studies, this is the style of housing that we're missing in our community. The question is this the right zoning and is this the right place?
And a two-story property like that would still be allowed with current zoning, correct?
Correct. All of our zoning, whether you're RS1 up to RM2, well, actually RM2 is higher, but it's all 2.5 stories and up to 35 feet in height. The difference between the zoning districts might be the floor area ratio, how big a house can be, as well as the setbacks also control where those things can be. Obviously, an RS3 has smaller setbacks than an RS1, which is why the lot sizes are much smaller. And so that impacts all those building decisions by the developer as the person that may come and buy those homes, but it also impacts the neighborhood around and for them to come and give what their thoughts are as well. I mean, that's why we have the open public meetings for this.
Okay. I'm all for affordable housing. I think what he's done in other areas has been great for that. To me, he can keep it more affordable by keeping it zoned as is and not trying to rezone it to where STRs can be allowed. That would actually drive up prices instead of keeping them affordable. That's all I've got.
Roll down. Harry?
Well, I'll echo some of the comments that Mary and Karen said. I'm a little concerned with the number of homes in here that are allowed by right to possibly be a rental. I think affordable housing, and I'll agree with Patrick, we need more affordable housing in this. The economic conference that we went to this morning, we talked about that. I think the challenge really is if we allow this to go in on an RM1 situation, how many of these lots will end up being rentals? And will that impact the rest of the neighborhood? So my question for you, Aaron, would be, how long would it take? You've already said that the RM1 is a catch-all. How long would it take you and your staff to come back to this particular group with different zonings that would fit between RS3 and RM1 as of today?
Well, we have a development team that's already working on that, as well as with the development task force. We anticipate this late spring that we'll be having a potential joint meeting with City Council and Planning Commission to address some of those, that we would be creating some additional RS districts that would allow smaller sizes and things like that. And so that would also look at the RM1 zoning of what structure types would we not allow in RM1. So it truly is a low-rise multifamily structure type. We would move those maybe to an RS structure type. And so we plan on doing that here this late spring.
All right, thank you.
Joseph?
So I sat on planning for quite a few years, and short-term rentals are a fun monster to tackle. If we move it to RS3, is that what we're?
We
we're
would go.
on RS3.
We're on
gonna move to
RS3.
RM1.
We'd be moving to RM1 as the
So
request.
RS3 allows short-term rentals,
It'll-
but within 500 feet of each
Correct.
other. Correct.
That is correct.
And that is governed by you guys.
Yes, sir.
If we move it to RM1, they're allowed throughout.
Correct.
Is that still governed through you?
It is governed. They still have to do their building inspection, and then they have to do their hot taxes. I would say they wouldn't have the zoning mechanism as an enforcement mechanism per se. They would have potentially other enforcement mechanisms, but again, it would not be the zoning mechanism. Where
And we
RS
always
has
go back
that.
to that in our meetings with planning is, okay, you actually have more restrictions on short-term rentals than you do long-term rentals, 30 days. If the police are called, they don't get that, they don't get to redo it. Do the same criteria happen for this if we move it to that? Does that make sense?
It does not. There's
Okay.
not a way to revoke that
Okay.
through a zoning mechanism.
It's just short-term's allowed because it's in that.
Yes, and
Okay.
I don't want to misspeak, Brandon, but I don't think there's anything else that zoning-wise.
You can't take it away from a hotel, which is the
Right,
same type
correct.
of.
Yeah, it would
zone.
be a code enforcement. essentially,
Correct.
If you had
Yes, sir.
noise or whatever it might be.
That's one of the wonderful things about short-term rentals is you can revoke it in the RS1 or RS3. But, okay, I just wanted to.
Yes, sir.
Double check that. Thank you.
Councilman Hebert.
Aaron, let's talk about parking.
Yes.
We haven't gone down that path yet. What is the requirement for parking in its current zoning classification of RS3?
I believe RS3, you're allowed, it's basically 2 parking spaces, and those have to be 9 by 18 on your private property. And so, say a structure like this, if it has a garage that, and maybe it's a 1-car garage, that counts as 1 space, and then if you have a driveway that's does not encroach in the, and I say encroach, but the vehicle wouldn't encroach into the right-of-way when it's parked there, then that also counts. These would need 2 parking spaces on private property.
As it exists currently?
Yes.
If it were changed to RM1, do the parking requirements change?
To RM1, they do change down to 1.5 parking spaces. However, if it's a short-term rental, they're required 2 parking spaces, no matter what. And that's kind of, an anomaly within our zoning ordinance where we drew a line at RS districts, conditional use, RM districts allowed by right. We have kind of a parking anomaly there of where you must show 2 parking spaces every time you come in there. Now, everybody's thinking in the back of their head, if there's not a process for them to come and check, do you have 2 parking spaces? Where's the recourse on that? And so we recognize that as an issue within our ordinance, and that's something else that we're going to be bringing forward later this spring.
In a worst-case scenario, and this is, I'll say, a possibility, I'm not sure it's a high probability, but nonetheless a possibility. I could see if there are, if my memory is correct, there could be as many, if it were changed to RM1, there could be as many as 33 alleged STRs there. I could see if those were all rented at one time, there might not be enough parking either for the structure itself, the 1.5, much less 2, but then we're starting to spill parking onto, in my opinion, possibly onto Stratford there. Which, have we had any comment from any of our public safety entities with respect to the parking, the possibility of that spilling over onto Stratford?
The short answer is no, we've not had any comment. The longer answer is I'm not sure that we've fully considered what is there, if there is spillover parking from a public safety standpoint. So I do see your concerns there for sure, but I would say I wouldn't put that on them for not saying that. I would say we probably didn't ask that in one of our Wednesday meetings of, hey, this rezoning is coming forward. If every one of these became an STR and we've got to add all these vehicles somewhere, is that a consideration? Is that a concern for anyone? I don't think we've asked that question.
Fair enough. Numbers of individuals as it currently sits now as RS3, how many individuals can be housed at any one time in its current zoning?
I believe our ordinance reads as 6 unrelated adults or a family unit. I think that comes down to how many they have in their family and what the size of the structures are. But our zoning ordinance talks about 6 unrelated adults. You can't go over that number.
If it were to go to RM1 and these were several or maybe more than several were to become STRs, what kind of requirements do we have on number of individuals in the house if it's an STR?
Well, the STR rules, while we still look at that 6 unrelated, but it also talks about there are basically 2 adults per bedroom. So If this was a 4-bedroom structure, that implies that you could have up to 8 unrelated in a short-term rental.
Okay, all right. You mentioned opposition.
Yes, sir.
Do we know, does it rise to the level that this is going to need a supermajority vote to pass with the opposition that you currently have?
For the written opposition that was turned in, it does not. It does not reach that 20% threshold. And so we don't have to have a supermajority vote here to overturn any decision.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Aaron, Brandon, I want to call an audible here. Would it be okay to take public comment prior to making our motion? I think this one has got enough, I won't say controversy, but it's got enough opinion on it that I would like to hear the public comment before we go ahead and make a motion. So Heather, how many do you have signed up for public comment?
We have 8 on this item.
Awesome. Let's start with number 1.
All right, Norman Ray Jenkins.
I didn't ask her. Y'all good with that? Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you why later, but it would. Sometimes it works. So, Mr. Jenkins, you're going to get 3 minutes on this one.
My name is Norman Jenkins. I live at 6029 Kingsbridge Drive, which is in number 6. I've lived in that home for 25 plus years. We looked at a lot of areas before we moved into that particular house, had it built. We selected that area because of its location within the city. We looked at all of the other available areas around the city and found the Bluffs to be best, primarily because it was nice homes. It was single-family dwellings. There were numerous types of lots available at that time. Now there are very few lots available. Some of them are owned by private individuals who bought them just to keep somebody else from building something that they didn't want next to them. Therefore, we do not want to allow some type of a zoning change that would open up the gates to allow people to change the lots or the homes in the upper bluffs to allow short-term rentals. Don't want to have Airbnbs, and we don't want housing up there that has multiple families living in one single-family dwelling. Right now, when I moved there, most of the people in our area were my age. Looking at are already retired, since some of those have left because of age, health, or passing away. A number of families have moved in that have children, so the demographics of the upper bluffs is changing as we go. Most everybody there is family oriented. We do not need to have a bunch of people moving in and out as a rental property. We enjoy seeing the people that we have on a regular basis. We have a very low crime rate. We have very low pet problems. And if we have a lot of people moving in and moving out on a regular basis, we think it would be detrimental to our homes, our safety, and what has become a very stable, loving neighborhood. I wish that we had had more time and to allow...
Mr. Jenkins, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Heather, number 2.
Steve Hampton.
I live on Burlington. I live in one of these houses, one of these 8 houses here. There's several speakers going to come up behind me that are.
So, can we hold a minute? You're Steve Hampton?
Yes, sir.
Do we have?
Stephen.
I'm sorry.
I've
We're
got
gonna start
ID.
the clock. But by history, there's another Steve Hampton back there.
Is there?
Yes.
Well, he's probably a lot better fellow than me.
Nah,
So-
let's just not go there. Let's not go there. But anyway.
You keep
Heather,
quiet,
will
Mr.
you
Keeley.
restart the clock and avoid the confusion? I'm sorry.
There's
We
several
were
other
all
folks
thinking
that
the
are
same thing.
that are much more versed on this. I thought I understood it when we walked in here. I couldn't be more confused with the different zoning numbers that you've been talking about. But the issue that I have is where there's 8 houses in that same area, there's about to be 33, and that lot line. I'm not sure is that the property line in that red mark, Mr. Benoit?
Yes, give or take a few feet, yes.
Okay, well, that lot line is not level. That lot line, about half of it is down in the drainage area. So these houses on the east side, they're literally going to have to be up to the edge of that if they're going to be the same size as the 8 that they've built on the west side. I would argue that they do not fit the, what was the phrase you said? I'm sorry. They fit with the model character of the neighborhood. I can't imagine anywhere else in the Bluffs that there's anything like that. Did I misquote you?
No, that's,
So your comment needs to be 3 minutes to the dais.
I won't have much more than that. The road this is really not even probably relative to that, but the new road that's put in from Stratford to where Skyline, is that what it is? It's a slight rise right there. That's a blind corner for anybody pulling out right there. I'll guarantee you're going to have a bad accident. I pull out there every morning between 5 and 6. I know it says 45 miles an hour. It's not. It's bad enough pulling out on Stratford on the 2288. The more people you got up there, the better chance you're going to have a big problem. If you put 2-story houses there, maybe that's a moot point because we can't fight that. I've walked up there and looked. I've been up in the ones that they've built. I can literally see right into my living room window from these houses. So I can't imagine anybody up here would be in favor of this if they were going to build it behind your house. So I'll defer the rest of my comments to these other gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Heather, number 3.
David Duncan. Yes, sir.
My name is David Duncan. I live out in the Bluffs. And I need to apologize first. I don't hear very well, so if I repeat what somebody else has said, I hope you'll just let me talk and, my understanding is there are 2 ways you can get a short-term rental. One is would apply to RS3, and that is that you are subject to the short-term rental use and the 500-foot rule. Those apply to RS1, RS2, RS3, RNE, or PD, but you notice they don't apply to RM1. And that's the second way you can get a right to use a short-term rental. Under the zoning regulations, it's a little bit of a euphemism when it says that RM1 allows short-term rental. What that means is that whoever owns that lot by law has the right to use it as short-term rental. Now, what that translates into is under RS3 in this subject area, I calculate it would allow probably 2 short-term rental houses. That's it. under RM1, it would be 33 short-term rental houses that could possibly be owned by 33 different people. And each one of those people is going to have a different standard, you know, how they keep a house, how they keep order in a house. Another difference between the RS type, the RS3 type, and the RM1 type is that if you have a short-term rental under the ones that fit into the 500-foot rule, basically, you have to get what it really amounts to a permit, a conditional use approval. That approval is revocable. Under RM, it's not revocable. This rule does not apply to RM1. And also, under the RS3, there's a whole litany towards the end of it of things that can cause a revocation of a permit. You can't revoke an RM1 short-term rental permit. It's not a permit. What it is it is a right that by the zoning law is attached to each separate lot. And that right belongs to whoever owns that lot. And that's why there would be 33 short-term rentals allowed there as opposed to 2. Now, I think that's a
Mr. Duncan,
concern.
you've hit the 3-minute limit, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment.
I only have one other comment, and I'm very concerned about.
No, sir. It's 3 minutes, that's all.
And actually, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Zane Willard. Mr. Willard. Can you confirm if you're the applicant? Are you the applicant on this item?
I am, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. As the applicant, he'll have 5 minutes.
He's got 5.
And I only have 3 minutes, so I better talk fast. So
5.
5, okay. Hey, so first of all, thank y'all for serving. Appreciate y'all taking your time and doing what you do, because y'all get bombarded with lots of stuff, so we appreciate that. I think there's a lot of confusion, and the one of the two, Mr. Hampton's, you know, it's confusing to me, and we do this all the time, the RS3 versus the RM1. The reason we asked for the request to go RM1 was strictly for the short-term rental. That doesn't mean that people will use it. It just gives them the right. The thing that I use as my litmus test on a daily is this 2024 housing study. And it asks for that. It asks for smaller houses, smaller lots, 0 lot lines. So we have followed what this recommendation is when we're looking for these properties they've been sitting there idle. Mr. Duncan had it for sale for decades. And that's the reason we went with the configuration we did over there. We've sold several of these where there's multiple opportunities for short-term rentals. I can't say one way or another, but most of the time that isn't what people are doing with it. I talked to the mayor yesterday. A lot of this will be corporate housing wherever you go with it. People are looking for, San Angelo is growing, but we have a shortage of smaller homes that fit what people need in terms of they're coming in for 3 to 9 months and they need a place to stay. So that's usually whenever you go the RM1, what we're finding is on a short-term rental, more people are going that way, meaning they're furnished. But that was the reason for the request. It doesn't change the size, the design, or any of those kind of things. Y'all have any questions for me?
Are you getting these sold as you build them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So every one of them is pretty much sold as it comes forward?
Not all. There's 8 of them under construction currently. We got 4 of them, you know, that people are going to move into. We've had people have a hard time seeing the finished product, and we got 4 of them that are right to the finish line. Mr. Hebert was talking about parking. We've got it set up right now with 3 parking spots. There's 1 where you'll be in a garage and then 2 outside parking. The ones on the opposite side, we're planning on making those 2-car garages on the bottom, so we'll end up with 4 parking spots per house.
You talked about the visibility into houses from these houses. Are they able to look out these houses down into the others?
Currently, they can look, there's 2 bedrooms upstairs and then there's a bedroom downstairs. The way our plan currently is because there's 0 lot line, the side that sits on the property line, there's no windows allowed. Our goal is to put all the windows facing the house beside it. So we'd had an earlier planning commission meeting, and there was a lot of conversation about not wanting any windows. So the side that would be the east side, that's our intent at this point, is to delete all the windows on that side. There won't be a backyard, so all we have to do is put a fence between each of them. They're usually 10 foot apart, and it pretty much blocks all the view from anybody being able to see on the bottom. So the quicker we get them built, the less opportunity anybody to look from the top to the bottom. Currently, if somebody was in one, they could see down and see into the houses in the bluffs.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Willard?
I've got one. Go ahead, though, Patrick.
Just a quick clarification. You, in your statement just now, you talked about corporate housing and, 3 to 6 to 9 months. Those are not considered STRs, so just want
Correct.
to make that point.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Zane, are any of these on the new ones, they're going to have like a little side yard? It's not, the house isn't like in the middle of it, but they'll have a little portion of yard.
On a zero lot line, the yard is always on the side. So between, one of them sits on the property line, and then you have the 10 foot from the house to the, how's the best way to describe this, Aaron? So one of them sits on the property line. That's the side that won't have windows. And then in this case, the front door is 10 foot away on the next house. And so your yard, instead of being in front or in the back, it's on the side.
But that side yard, would you be able to still stand there in that side yard and look over onto Burlington?
No.
So where's it going to be?
Well, the garage is in the front. The window's right there on the side. So that's pointing out. Burlington is, where's Burlington at? Down here?
Burlington is
Yeah,
east of-
Burlington's over there. So, I mean, there's not going to be a direct window looking over out
I'm
the
not talking
back.
about a window. I'm talking about if you're standing in the little 10-foot yard area.
So right there, from right here where that's at, over, that's where the fence would be, but it's on the opposite side. There's no fence in this particular picture. We've already done them on the ones that are there currently.
Okay, that's still, okay. That doesn't answer my question. If that house is sitting on that lot, I don't care how many stories or anything, I don't even care about windows on this statement. That yard is on the side of the house, correct?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does that yard go all the way back to that end before you go off that
Yes,
cliff?
yeah.
All right, so they could be standing in their yard and see over into the people on Burlington.
They could. Our intent is to put a fence between the two houses, so if you were in your yard, you couldn't see toward Burlington.
Well, I've been over there several times, and when you, even the 10-foot deal, even if you had a 7-foot privacy fence, I mean, I'm, with boots on, I'm 6 feet tall, and I was standing there, and I saw 3 of them in their pool. So.
But I'm talking about when we build them on the other side.
I am
think-
too. I am too. No, but even if I did have a foot, you can still see down. It's incredible. You don't think that it will with any kind of fence, but you can still see down there.
I think when we get the fence built, and you were standing by a 7-foot fence, I think at 6 foot, it's going to be taller than you are. But perhaps you're correct.
Well, I just want to make, main thing, if that they would have access on that, on that yard part of them, that 10-foot. They could still get up there to it.
So to follow up a little bit of what Mary brought, and the reason you get to continue, Zane, is because we have engaged you and as appellate to continue this conversation. That doesn't matter whether either zoning or not. Those people will be able to stand and look whatever way, regardless of what we do on the zoning here.
Correct. It's no different.
This whole thing boils down to, can it end up available for multiple STRs or not?
Correct. Yes, sir.
That's when all it boils down to is that one decision.
Yes,
Where
sir.
somebody stands, what they can see doesn't change. You have the right to build there.
Correct.
Any further questions for Zane? Zane, thank you.
Thank you.
Will Barnes. Hello, I'm Will Barnes, single member District 1, and I am for them as a realtor. Sorry. As a realtor, I believe in choice of use and best use for your home. I do totally understand if you're in a neighborhood and you're all combined and in a smaller or group setting like this, they're up on a hill and on the fence, the side yard, like this home is on the opposite side of where Burlington is. So the other home's going to be across from it. So when the other homes get across, you're not going to look out your front and see over. And when you have a side yard, I mean, if you stand up on the fence railing, you can look over at that time. But the whole purpose is, I believe it lets people have choice and it gives people the right to make sure if times get tough and there has to be something done, it gives them the flexibility to make the best use. The short-term rentals is under 30 days. A lot of these probably will be fully furnished for the professional network and the traveling nurses and doctors. And again, that isn't going to affect this whatsoever. They're still going to be there. I currently live close to 2 short-term rentals, and I have no issues because most of the time it's a traveling nurse in there. Occasionally you will have, people in and out. And as a family man, when we go on vacation, we look for a short-term rental so we don't have to get 2 hotel rooms to allow people to bring their whole family down. So in a nutshell, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Number 6, Heather.
Scott Allison.
My name's Scott Allison. I've had the opportunity to help our community and enjoy our community for over 40 years in the residential real estate division. And one thing I've learned is we don't tell the market what to do. The market tells us what to do. So in total transparency, no matter who can build what, where, how, the reason that we're asking for this is for the short-term rentals. When I sat on the planning commission years ago, they didn't even exist. Things change. It's here. The market's telling us we got to do it. That's why we're here. But I do want to make one point of clarification, and I was worried about overseeing the fence. I live in Bentwood. You know what they did next door to me? They built a 2-story house. Guess what they look into? My backyard. And on any single residential lot in San Angelo, Texas, as long as it's big enough lot, you can build a 2-story house. If you build a 2-story house, you can look in your neighbor's backyard. So anyway, but thank y'all for your consideration. And I understand everybody's point of view on it, but the market is what told us to come ask for y'all to do this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. Number 7, Heather.
Shelley Sturgeon.
My name is Shelley Sturgeon. I live on
Can you pull the mic
Burlington.
down? Thank you.
All right, Shelley Sturgeon. I live on Burlington. These houses back right up into my backyard, as they said. The current zoning ordinance is to discourage super high density housing. And I'm not sure that changing it is going to make it less, but it's violating sensible city planning. It does not protect the integrity or character of our neighborhood. I'm not sure where affordable housing and the Bluffs came together in the same sentence. That eludes me. Our privacy has already been violated. The natural environment and topography have been adversely affected. The homeowners are entitled to what's called quiet enjoyment of our land. And changing the zone would further violate those rights. It's just, we're asking to consider us homeowners who are already there. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sturgeon. Number 8.
Frederick Hernandez.
Mayor Thompson, council members, fairly new to the San Angelo area, bought our home a little over 2 years ago. we bought in the Burlington area specifically for the privacy. Some of these notices, I have not ever received any of it. It may be because I'm unlisted, but I was not provided, or my wife and I were not provided due process in that regard. I do want to talk about, as soon as this started going up, we did put our house up for sale. Just about everybody who came to look at our house was very concerned about what was building in the back. And nevertheless, we did not sell it, and we've taken the house off the market at this time. The other thing I wanted to mention was that it has totally destroyed any privacy that we had. If you have not been there yourself, this picture, it looks like you have some type of vast open area. It is a tight area. And if you listen to the individual that was speaking earlier, if you listen to his words about maximizing these zero lot lines, they're trying to fit in as much as they can in an area that really, if you look at it, it's going to be very crowded. That FM 2288, the traffic does go by pretty quick, especially when it gets dark. There's not going to be, if they're going to have multiple individuals living in any of these houses, that's a potential of having multiple vehicles. There's not enough parking area there. They're going to end up parking in Stratford. And folks coming off FM 2288 onto Stratford, they're typically, especially at night, they're not coming off that road under the speed limit. That's just a personal testimony of myself that I can vouch myself, because we did put the house up for sale, and it is adversely having an effect on our property values. And that's all I have, other than the fact that, again, if you have not seen that area, I would strongly encourage you to go and see it, because these pictures right here do not give any justice to how tight that area is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
That's all.
Hold on. All right, Aaron, come back up. All right, Aaron, so we've heard opposition and we've heard those that are advocating for this change, and both sides of those have very good points of view. Where I live on the north side of town, it's a lot different than it was 20 years ago. I mean, change happens, density happens. I don't think any of us here are naive enough to think that what we buy is going to protect us forever. We get that, but we do have a right to voice our opinion and move forward. Are there any further questions on the dais for Aaron? So Aaron, if I understand this right, planning approved this 7-0?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in favor of changing the zoning.
Yes, sir.
With that, I'm gonna make a motion to approve as presented, to make the first motion, because I don't want anybody to have to take this one on their own. This is a big decision. And I'm gonna make the first motion.
Can I ask him a quick question?
Sure.
Aaron, on Planning Commission,
Yes, sir.
were they fully aware of the STR difference? Was that discussed in
Yes.
depth? Okay,
It was.
thank you.
Okay, well, I just want to go back just a while a bit, and I don't want to accuse it, we're going on the record. We try not to come back and make comments after the motion. And so when I ask, has anybody got anything left to roll, let's go ahead and roll with it. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I do understand the need for affordable housing, and you see that all over San Angelo. I think this is a case of just because you can, should you? You know, and this area, while I know growth happens, change happens, it's inevitable. The fact that Mr. Willard can go ahead and build those other 33 homes, they can still go. We're not knocking everybody out of making a living or anything like that, not trying to shut down construction. It's the short-term rental aspect that has everybody so up in arms. While this works in many other areas, other subdivisions and what have you, it does not fit with the bluffs. And I've talked to numerous people, not just on Burlington, but just all around. It changes the complex of the development. It changes the complex for everyone that already has established homes. But I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you, Aaron, this was a great presentation, and you had a lot of detail in it, and it took some time, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Is everybody completed with their comments for Aaron? All right, we have a first on the floor that I have made. Do I have a second? I have a second from Harry Thomas. We're going to take these votes one by one as we come across. Is that all right, Brandon? All right, so we'll start with you. Mary, in favor of the item as presented, say yay. If you're opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Got a nay. Karen?
Nay.
Patrick?
Nay.
I am a yay. Harry?
I'm going to be yay.
Okay. Joe?
Nay.
Nay. Hebert?
Nay.
Nay. Item fails 5-2. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, let's go to, are we on D? Somebody tell me we're on D. All right, thanks, Patrick. First reading and public hearing of an ordinance for Z2530, a request for a zone change from the neighborhood commercial zoning district to the low-rise multifamily zoning district for a 1.17 acre property at the intersection of South Bryant and Century Drive. Presentation made by Planning and Development Services Director, Aaron Vanoy.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, Mr. Valenzuela, Aaron Vanoy, Director of Planning and Development Services. So this is a tract that's just 1.1 acres here off of Bryant. You can see that's also on Century right there. It's in the neighborhood of Rio Vista. It's in District 1, Tommy Hebert. The vision plan is commercial. This is a request to go from the neighborhood commercial, which has not been developed as, to the low-rise multifamily RM1. We did send out 10 notices. We had 0 in support and 0 opposition. Here's our zoning over here on the left. You can see we have an RM1 development here at the back. This over here is neighborhood commercial, but it's actually also an RM2 development, just happens to be zoned neighborhood commercial. And then across Bryant, you see some heavy commercial, general commercial, and then you see some large vacant area that's ranch and estate at this time. You can see our vision plan on the right. You can see where that commercial swath that in 2000, all we did was we kind of painted 200 feet on either side of Bryant, said that's all going to be commercial. But as we know, development doesn't always happen that way. In this case, we've got neighborhood here at the back. RM1 does fit with commercial and with neighborhood. And so we believe that RM1 is going to be a potential for this property. We did look at this. It does have an alleyway here. It has a road connection there and a road connection there. And the developer's going to keep it all one lot, looking at 10, what he would call zero lot line structures going along there. They have, I believe they're actually 110 feet deep as far as that piece of property. And so they have lots of space for people to pull in, pull all the way through if they wanted to do that, or back out in the alleyway and come around. As you notice, there's not a crossover here or here. That's a text dot thing. These folks, they could go through and come up here to Jackson if they chose to, or if they're going south, they could turn out, or going north, they could turn out and go north on Bryant. We did talk about this as staff. The development has not moved anywhere in over 2 decades, almost 3 decades actually. But now the property has some potential with coming in with this low-rise multifamily. We know that we do need more housing in our community and this style of housing that is in an area that's close to Goodfellow, also close to ASU, close to Bryant, which is a major thoroughfare to get to downtown or other places. And so staff is recommending approval for the zone change from neighborhood commercial to low-rise multifamily on that tract. This did go to Planning Commission on February 2nd, and they also recommended approval with a 7-0 vote. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Aaron, everybody's familiar with this as you come in South Chinatown, and it also matches the existing environment. Whose district is this in?
I want to say Mr. Hebert.
Mine.
We'll let you tee off here.
I've only had one question on this, and it had to do with architectural construction material, which we can't control by zoning. So that answered the question for them. With that, Mayor, I'll move approval as presented.
As we roll on, does anybody else got any questions for Aaron first?
Just real quick. Is this I know right in there's been a bunch of property for sale for a long time. Usually I'm against trying to sell commercial for residential and leave it commercial because we want to grow that as our city. But is this the one that's been for sale, or is it the one just to the south that was R&E? Do you know offhand?
I don't know that. I know.
I could tell by the road view. I can't tell from a satellite view.
I know the I say fairly new Allsops is just to the south of this,
Yeah.
and I know there's a pretty big wide tract there that some of the property owners at going to the east own, but I don't know if those front properties have been for sale or not, to be honest with you.
Well, I know it's been for sale and hasn't been developed, so to me this seems like a great use of the land now.
Are you done? All right. I have a first from Tommy Hebert. Second from Joe Self. Any public comment, Heather? All right, with no public comment on item D, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Let's go over to item E. First reading and public hearing of an ordinance for Z25-31, a request for a zone change from the general heavy commercial and light manufacturing zoning district to the general commercial zoning district at 1805 South Bryant Boulevard. Presentation made by Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor. This property is really kind of a cleanup so that there's some potential new development that's going to come in. You can see it's in a little odd shape there, that it has a little arm that reaches out to Avenue N and this little piece and a structure here at the back. But today we're talking about the rezoning of this property. This is in the Rio Vista neighborhood. It is District 3, Mr. Harry Thomas. The vision plan is commercial, and it's just under 3/4 of an acre. And we are looking at changing the zoning from light manufacturing and general commercial, heavy commercial, just to general commercial. And I'll show you that in just a second. We did send our notices. We did not receive any in support or any in opposed. But you can see here on the left where we have this industrial kind of blue area, this light manufacturing area that's back here. Some of the properties have kind of developed that way and some haven't. We know that that's a car wash. We know this is an O'Reilly's. We know that's the KFC. We know that's the Wiener Schnitzel. And so this kind of corner here, as you would expect with a commercial corner, has really not been that light manufacturing. And so they are coming today to really clean that up. You can see the whole area is with the vision of commercial, and this being a major thoroughfare, they're looking at putting something there that can work with the traffic numbers that are coming through there. With that, we did take this to Planning Commission. Staff also recommend approval that this fits within the area. It does remove the general commercial, heavy commercial, so it does help zone that to a more appropriate to the general commercial. It gets rid of the light manufacturing at the back for this property and allows them to kind of move forward with an approved, get moving on a site plan on how they would develop that tract. Planning Commission did recommend approval on February 2nd, 2026 with a 7-0 vote. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Once again, Harry, this falls within your district?
Well, I believe this is something we needed to do for a long time, simply because we needed to get to CG. So I certainly move to approve it.
All right. Did anybody have any questions on this before we move? All right, I've got a first from Harry and a second from Patrick. Heather, is there any public comment? With no public comment for item E, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Let's go to item F, first reading and public hearing for an ordinance for CP 25-04, a request for a comprehensive plan amendment from neighborhood center to industrial, and item 2, Z2532, request for a zone change from the Ranch and Estate zoning district to the heavy manufacturing zoning district located at 3089 East FM 2105. Aaron, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in the Pauline neighborhood, District 4, Mr. Patrick Keeley. The current zoning is Ranch and Estate. Excuse me. And the vision plan is industrial and neighborhood center, and you'll see the neighborhood center in just a moment. But just to kind of get your bearings straight, right here is the existing rail yard. Right here is our existing landfill. Of course, FM 2105, Old Ballinger Road, and so 277 is over here to the east just a little bit. So this is a city-owned piece of property, and we are getting ready to have someone come in and start doing some develop and potentially sell some pieces of it off. We did mail out our 12 mailers. We had 0 in favor and 0 opposed. None of the property owners around there gave us any feedback. Here's our zoning. Of course, our landfill, as you can say, and this is one of those that's probably the inappropriate zoning back in 2000. They just came and said, well, that'll all be ranch and estate. In reality, that's industrial and should move to industrial. And you can see the comp plan, they got that right. This property here is going to be an expansion of the rail park in the future, and so we're getting ready with this rezoning to allow that to happen so they can start moving forward with site plans and how they want to develop that. You can see the vision plan out there. When you get past this property right here to this side, that's in the ETJ. And up here at the top, that's also in the ETJ. So our zoning ordinance does not control those guys. But on this property, it is within the city limits, and so our zoning ordinance does control it. On the vision plan, we are changing it, this one little corner right up here, because this is where an intersection is supposed to happen in the future. It's supposed to be a major intersection with Covington and such, and so in 2000, they put neighborhood center, but obviously it has not developed that way in the last 26 years, and we don't anticipate it developing that way in the next 26 years with what we're doing here today. Beautiful picture out on the road. You can see looking down 2105, and that's that road, that corner there at Covington. With that, staff does recommend approval of the rezoning from the ranch and estate to heavy manufacturing and a comprehensive plan amendment from that small corner of neighborhood center to industrial. Planning Commission heard this on February 2nd, 2026, and did recommend 7-0 in approval. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Patrick, in your district, why don't you tee us off here?
I only had one call about it. They have some business in the area, and they were calling about it. And once they knew what it was, they were fine with it. We heard about it at the Economic Summit today, about kind of what their plan is for the railport and the expansion and to bring in and load and unload cars. So I've got no problem with it in my area.
Patrick, anybody else have some questions? So I got a first from Patrick, and we're going to give the second to Joe Self. Any public comment? All right, with no public comment, we're going to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Did you sign up for public comment?
I did not.
Then we.
I apologize. I don't feel like we got enough notice on this, and I live on 2105.
Ma'am, I got that, but we have to be consistent with everybody, and I'm sorry about that. Okay. So with no public comment, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With no opposed, item F passes 7-0. Before we go into item G, we have set quite a while. I'd like to take a 10-minute break, give everybody a chance to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back with the much anticipated item G. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order at 7:40 p.m. on February 17th. We're going to move into agenda item G. So before we go down agenda item G, Brandon, will you kind of define the lines, the legality of this is a non-action item that we won't vote on? Will you kind of give a little bit of the parameters here?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, again, this
Can you
is...
talk in the microphone, sir?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Hey, we all got to play by the same rules.
I understand. Thank you. No, this is just a discussion-only item. There has been guidelines that were included in the agenda packet, and so discussion should be limited to those guidelines or related guidelines that we're talking about that could be in this type of district or zone. But beyond that, no action will be had. If these guidelines do later become an ordinance, I mean, of course, that has a process they would have to go through, likely because it's dealing with zoning that has started at the Planning Commission and then work its way up to City Council. So there will be more opportunities for public hearings on these.
All right, cool, thank you. I'll go ahead and read item G, discussion direction for staff to consider design guidelines and conditional use processes for data center type projects in the Northeast Master Plan. Presentation made by Planning and Development Director Aaron Vanoy, Chief Project Officer Rick Weiss, that's a new title, and Westwood Consultant Eric Head. Aaron, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. I got voluntold to be the one to present this, so I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you, sir. So what I want to do is, as you guys know, and this is available to the public, is that this information is in the council background. It's about 6 to 7 pages long that has also some landscaping information in it. I'm going to go through some of the highlights through here. And so if there's things you want to talk about or bring up or something, myself as well as Rick Weiss and Eric Head will be here to discuss these items and make sure that we have some understanding of what they really mean. But as we mentioned in meetings past, that Westwood Professional Services was doing a Northeast master plan. Part of their master plan was to look at guidelines for data centers, and we asked them to fast track this item so that we could get it in front of the citizens and council before the rest of their master plan came forward, because it was very clear that our citizens care about data centers and how they're regulated, and should we add some more regulations if we choose to our zoning ordinance. So I'm just going to go through here and talk about what they've kind of come up with as recommendations for us to move forward with. So currently, data centers are allowed by right in light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing. One of the options is to add a conditional use process or a conditional use permit. It would provide notice to the surrounding properties of a light manufacturing or heavy manufacturing zoning district wants to put a data center there. It would have a public hearing at Planning Commission, and it would also be subject to the design standards that may get adopted at some point that we were going to discuss many of those tonight. The other option is to create an overlay district in which an area where data centers would be allowed and subject to those design centers. So if we said, all right, this part of town, we want data centers only in this part of town, we would create an overlay district for that area. That has some challenges because we haven't fully looked at all the possibilities of where or if data centers could come. We also have looked at, and we'll get to another slide, a definition of data centers and what do they mean. As we've done more and more research, we have data centers in our community today. We just do. And it's actually more than I realized because they're just there being a business, doing their thing. And so it's very interesting of what they're doing. So if we were to add a secondary process to something that we think would be allowed by right, but let's add we would recommend the conditional use process for any property that's in the light manufacturing or heavy manufacturing zoning district. They would have another step to go through, go to Planning Commission, and be heard at Planning Commission if they could have a data center allowed on that piece of property. With a conditional use, you're able to add conditions. We would propose at some point, and we'll get that to the end, but that the design guidelines are automatic. They're not something that can be varied, that could be requested to go away, that those would come with that conditional use. And we would have to write our ordinance that way, but that comes at a later step. But that would be one of our recommendations. So some of the other standards that we have in here is some definitions. We realize that our ordinance is very light in definitions when it comes to data centers, as are most ordinances around the country. The team, and I say the team, actually Westwood, did the heavy lifting on this. They actually went and looked at 2 jurisdictions in Virginia that have lots and lots of data centers. They looked at Glen Heights, they looked at Round Rock, and they looked at Irving. All have ordinances for data centers, and he was able to pull over information that would be potentially in an ordinance for us in the future. So adding definitions for a data center, talking about the principal use, what a data center could be used for as a principal use, generator yards, private utilities. We put in here, new data center over 3,000 square feet would need the correct zoning and the conditional use, meaning if you found the light manufacturing and, or the heavy manufacturing, you apply for the conditional use if you're over 3,000 square feet. What we have since learned, since we came up with some of those numbers, there are some data centers within town that already exceed that size. And if you think about our medical center, they have a data center. I mean, they just do, because they have to keep all those medical records and data. We have other data centers, so we're not sure that that size fits quite yet. And so do we go back with a principal use of that's their principal reason for being there as a data center? Or is it like a secondary use, like if you're a medical center and you just happen to have a data center to manage your data? And so that's a question that we kind of still have in our heads. A property could go through a planned development. So maybe they're not light manufacturing, maybe they're not heavy manufacturing, but they found a piece of property and they say, well, we want to go through a planned development. We are recommending that we would still write that our design standards would still go with that planned development for a data center. That they wouldn't be able to be varied or removed through the planned development, saying, all right, we're going to remove the condition of the design standards at Planning Commission. Now, planned development gets 3 public hearings, go to Planning Commission, and they come to City Council twice. And so there's lots of opportunity there as a planned development. All must do plan submittal with elevations, materials, and signage. And we'll talk a little bit more about this plan submittal in just a moment. But they're really having to do everything that an urban design would require, which is all of those. But we would codify that in our code, saying that they must do this with their plan submittal, not go through a rezoning or conditional use and then 10 months down the road they need to submit that. We would ask them to submit that ahead of time. In that plan submittal, we're going to be looking at building locations with all the setbacks. We're looking at ground-mounted equipment, which is a new kind of definition buried in there. Parking, driveways, circulation around that site, sidewalks and pedestrian routes. Ground-mounted equipment is really important. I put it in there twice. Fencing and landscaping, screening, lights and photometric analysis. How is their light bleeding off their site? Sound study, how much of that sound is bleeding off of their property and what kind of sound is it? What are the decibels? Is it a low rumble? Is it a high pitch? Is it, one of those types of things? Again, those building elevations, materials, and signage. We think that's very encompassing, and that would be submitted at the conditional use process. So that would be available to the Planning Commission to look at to make sure that all those setbacks and all these elements are meeting our definitions. Now, staff would bring forward that recommendation to the Planning Commission of yes, it meets or no, it doesn't, and go forward from there. So within that document, you'll see some setbacks and buffer recommendations, and I tried to break this out between residential use and just some building setbacks and some building heights. So let me know if I lose you on this, because it took me a little bit to get to this. But so if this property is adjacent to a residential zoning or land use, and it's inside the city limits, you got to have a 300-foot front yard, you have to have a 300-foot side yard, and you have to have a 300-foot rear yard. So that's a lot of property already eaten up if you're adjacent to a residential zoning or use. If you're outside the city limits, so if we're looking at a property that abuts right up to the ETJ, we're saying you just have to be 200 feet. So if the ETJ is in front of you, it's 200 feet for the front yard. If the ETJ is to one side or the other, you're 200 feet setback. Or if your ETJ is to the rear of your property, then it's 200 feet there. And the reason being, zoning doesn't transfer out to the ETJ. We don't really have a control over what somebody comes and does there. Where within our city limits, we're trying to protect our citizens and our properties that we have within our city limits. So we're going to talk about building setbacks and some of this equipment type of stuff. And so the building setback from any property line. And this is, and I'll put that out, this is if this does not trigger a residential zoning or use, your building setback is 50 feet. So if your adjacent land is commercial, manufacturing, your buffer's really only 50 feet instead of the 300 feet. But if you're residential, you're 300 feet if you're in the city limits. And it also talked about in there, or a collapse zone. And so if your structure is so high that it exceeds that 50-foot collapse zone, you would have to move your structure back based on the collapse zone. And that would be something we would ask for the development to turn in with the conditional use process. So ground-mounted equipment, doesn't matter what zoning district it's adjacent to, it's 300 feet back from or within the center of the buildings, of where they're ground-mounted equipment, and that includes generators. So if you're wanting to know what a ground-mounted equipment is, it encompasses a lot of things, but the most concerning is probably generators. And then we talk about pavement. And so you got to be at least 25 feet from the pavement right of way. So if any of these properties develop and maybe there's a local road that goes through it, you got to be further back than that. You got to be the pavement internal has to be, let me explain that better. This pavement means the internal pavement for the project. So if you're going to have a drive aisle, if you're along right-of-way, say a local road happens to cut through there, you have to be at least 25 feet back to have that internal drive to go in there. Same thing if you're off US Highway 67, we're asking for 40 feet back before you have any internal circulation. Again, giving that buffer there. And then on side yards and rear yards, you would still have at least 10 feet at that time. The building height. So currently, light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing does not have a cap on building height. We believe under what we have seen around the country for data centers and things, a max height from building grade of 75 feet is more than adequate. I mean, that's a very tall structure when you start thinking about that, but that's more than adequate to serve our needs, but having that as a restriction. And then any accessory height, whether it's ground-mounted equipment, antennas, or other things that are accessory to the main structure, they would have a 30-foot maximum height. I see everybody looking at me, and so I'm wondering, are there any questions yet, or Mayor, would you like me to continue on with this for the next few slides?
So on the accessories, what if they need a radio antenna? I mean, what if they have to put up something and they're trying to direct sight it as you get your glasses out there?
I want to get back to that specific section so I make sure that I'm speaking correctly. And I may ask one of the gentlemen that helped with this, make sure that I'm not misspeaking, but it said accessory structures located between primary structure and property line shall be a maximum of 30 feet. And so if this is between the property line and your building here and you have the accessory structure in the middle, the maximum is 30 feet. So I misspoke. If that accessory structure is on that side of the building, in the middle, it could be higher.
Okay.
I want
That's
to
my
make
only
sure.
question. Anybody else?
And I just want to make sure that our audience knows that as well as our folks that are listening. So,
Hey, Aaron.
Yes, sir.
You may have explained it, I may have missed it, but you mentioned the collapse zone. You want, for the audience, for people watching us on YouTube as well, you want to explain that a little bit more clearly?
Yes, so when you're looking at the building setback, so you're seeing how far that building is from the property line. Well, the taller your building is, while we don't want it to collapse, but there is a collapse zone around that building. And if you have a structure that's so tall, say if it does hit that 75 foot, there's a good chance that that collapse zone is going to be past your property's line. And we're trying to protect not only their property, but adjacent properties too. And so that's the reason of saying if we have this building setback or your collapse zone, if you happen to go up to something higher, you've got to have a collapse zone there to make sure that your setback won't impact somebody else's property.
Sure, no, ask.
Yes.
Aaron, on that collapse zone, do we need to leave a setback on top of that just for error? I mean, I hate to have zero room for error and be right next to somebody else.
We certainly could, whether that's a 20-foot or 25-foot. I mean, that is certainly an option. And so that's kind of where we have this discussion and have these, like, hey, we want to look at that. What does that look like? Because our intention is, get your feedback and how can we, and the citizens' feedback, how can we move forward with something so that we get something in our ordinances in the future, so we know that we can handle data centers that may be looking at our community to come to us.
That's the only thing I really saw on that is just the fact with 50 or to just straight collapse zone, just to leave a little bit of buffer there. That'd be something I'd be interested in vetting out. And then I appreciate the fact that we put outside the city limits, still gave a pretty good buffer there to try to help those people.
Yes, sir.
Aaron, does that collapse zone specifically just the height of the building, or does it factor in a fall area that building would fall? I'm just curious. That may be already figured in there. I don't know. But
it does figure in a fall area, and I may turn to look at Eric for just a moment, because collapse zones is a fancy word, and I know y'all are all keen on that, so I want the true expert to come and make sure that I'm not mis-explaining.
Right. Thank you, Council. Eric Head with Westwood Professional Services. Regarding the language in the proposed code, it says building setbacks to the street right-of-way, side yard, and rear yards greater of 50 feet or building collapse zone. So if the building is 75 feet, it does give you, it's saying like the building needs to be back from the property line 75 feet, right? So God forbid a side of a building did fall, it should just land at the property line and not affect the adjacent property owner. So it does two things. It pushes the building further back visually, right? And for a safety factor of it not affecting an adjacent property. That's the two things it does. Nothing more complicated than that.
Thank you. It's always good to have a relief pitcher. All right, well, let's move on to some other items that are within the document. And it does address parking. One space for 500 square feet of office space and one space per data center employee, which is different than our parking ordinance today. It normally looks at gross area, and sometimes we get overparked. And I think our goal for development like this is to get the right amount of parking. If after development you only have so many employees, well, then that's how many employees need parking spaces. There is also discussion in there quite a bit about large truck parking and maneuvering zones for large trucks as they come in, whether they're coming in to change out equipment over time and things like that. I do think that we want to have some accessory parking, but just not a whole lot. I'm not sure that they're going to need a whole, it's not like vendors are going to be coming there and trying to sell things to the business that's there. You may have these employees that come in and work on things, that do the maintenance and do stuff like that. And we want to make sure that we have adequate parking for them, but not an excessive amount that takes away from the potential green space and other things that are there. The ground-mounted equipment, basically all of it must be screened, and in this case, it was a masonry-type screening, so a block or brick or other masonry-type wall that would be screening that ground-mounted equipment. Rooftop equipment would also be visually screened. Now, that may be with the same, that would not have to be a masonry screening, but it could be something that is a metal-type screening, depending on the style of the building. Fencing, again, could be masonry, wrought iron, or black PVC coated chain link. And there's some more details in there, but along the street frontage, say whether it's a local street, Highway 67, whatever it may be, for areas that we're looking at, is that we would want that fencing to be masonry or wrought iron, to have a little bit better, higher quality look to it than fencing that's in the back of the property. Our assumption is that most of these properties do put a perimeter fence for security of some kind, and if they're large properties, that can be very costly. The black PVC coated chain link blends in because it's a very dark color. Now, we thought about wood. Wood just doesn't hold up over time, and if you're doing 600 feet of a wood fence, that's probably not the best option for you for maintenance and things like that over time. And so we put those in as suggestions, and so we think those work. And then we also put in there a clause about fencing not in front of landscaping adjacent to the public roads. We don't want their fence to hide the landscaping. We want that landscaping to be seen, still be a buffer, still be a sound absorber, and have those types of things there. It does have a lot of landscaping requirements and lots of details within the document. And again, I tried to just kind of summarize is that if there's parkways, side and rear yards, it addresses those areas of needing and requiring certain types of landscaping. It also talks about grass and sod and how it has to be maintained, those types of things, and that kind of gives us some ability to go back, and if we see some kind of violation in the future, we have the ability to go back and say, well, you're supposed to have 7 trees here or 6 bushes or whatever the case may be. Then we have some provisions in there. If your parking lot is over 100 spaces, you must have some landscape islands. It can't just be a sea of parking. We want to break that up and have some better things in the landscape items, from trees to shrubs and things like that. Lighting should be shielded and pointed downward, not to exceed a 30-foot in height. That's basically a freestanding pole. If it's on the building, the lights are still going to be shielded and pointing down, but they can only be between 10 and 18 feet high. So they're not super high, really casting a lot of light. They're not super low. That's really not helpful, those types of things.
Question.
Yes, sir.
This is rather an outlandish question, I realize. When you're talking about parking available, and maybe I need to ask Eric this first. Are you aware of many of the data centers that have food trucks come on the property at any point during the day? Or is that just typically not a thing?
No, sir, I'm not. I don't know that particular detail of the operation of, once it's built, in operation, if that's something that happens or not. Related to parking, I will tell you that one space per 500 square feet of office, conference rooms, et cetera, that was in there to mirror what San Angelo has for its parking requirements for those types of uses. Then we added one space per employee, people working back in the data center. So that's where that particular language came from.
Thanks. Aaron, that, again, it's probably a silly question, but it may be worth asking the question of someone that has had experience with data centers. Do they have food trucks come on the property? That may be something at some point that might, anyway, again.
No, I think that's reasonable to plan ahead, because they may have one, and they just need to make sure that they have adequate parking for that. And I think that's where, on this line item, while we have one space per data center, maybe we add an additional amount of spaces up to a certain number and say, all right, well, you need to have a few extras for FedEx that shows up, or for the person that, got lost or is coming to apply for a job, or whatever the case may be. They're all good questions. All right.
You hungry over there, Tom?
Give me a note.
Let's keep going, Aaron.
Let's talk about noise. Maximum sound levels, we did put in there the 60 dBA at daytime and the 55 at nighttime. And if you start looking those numbers up, that's pretty quiet. And we're talking about at the property lines. We also, realizing that there's some noise items, talking about generator testing, and we've put in there, conducted between 9 and 4 p.m., so, during the workday, unless approved by Planning Development Services Director, which means, is there a time that they have to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday? Because I think we put that just 5 days a week. I could be wrong on that, but are there times that they've got to test something because they replaced a piece and it's 6 o'clock at night? Is there a time that they have to do that? We would require a noise study to be submitted with the conditional use process. And by saying this next statement, you'll see that it'll have part of it as a pre-study and then a post-construction study at the conditions. All right, we know that we have finished conditions. Now let's go and see, do you have any violations here that we need to address before you do violate it? And let's figure those out before we give you your certificate of occupancy or whatever it may be. Sound modeling must include all proposed development. That's either if they want to build it today or in 5 years. Go ahead and propose that so we know what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean they can't change that over time, but then it may mean we need to come back and look at some things, ask for a new sound modeling test, and review that. And then after that study, within the study, it should include some recommendations for mitigation measures, how they're constructing their walls, how they're meeting different setbacks, how they're changing the actual tuning of the equipment so that it can change that sound from being maybe a low rumble or hum to something different that can be mitigated differently with technology. And so that has to come through back with those recommendations, and we will check to see, well, what are you implementing within your construction, within your project to mitigate those things? So with that, I know it's a big document. I know we have a group of folks that have some questions and want to have some information, but our recommendation is to move forward with the conditional use process, move forward with adopting the setbacks and the design standards in an ordinance, which would go to Planning Commission, which would then come to 2 hearings at City Council. Our timeline that we would like to do, because we'd like to move this fairly quickly to make sure that we're ahead of any potential projects that may come our way, that we're trying to treat them all the same, is present this to the Planning Commission with whatever recommendations you guys have on March 16th. Then present to the Planning Commission recommendation back here to City Council on March 17th and have a second reading on April the 7th at the City Council. And I put that there just to let you know what we think is a timeline that works, that we're able to meet all of our notices. If we do put this in ordinance form, we will have to send out over 1,200 notices to people that owned light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing zoning districts, because this impacts every single one of those property owners, and they by law have to know that. And so it will be a lot of properties notified and 200 feet around each one of those properties. So just giving you all a heads up on that. With that, I think let's open up the discussion, Mayor, and you tell me which slide you'd like to go back to and how to explain things.
Do you have any more slides to show, or is that complete?
I believe that's it.
All right, so let's go to public comment. Brandon, will you tell us it's the same 3-minute limit, correct? There's not going to be any feedback back or forth, but we are documenting, recording, things like that. So let's go ahead and start with public comment. Heather, number 1.
Richard Summers.
My name is Richard Summers. I live in District 5. Good evening, Mayor and Council, again. A freestanding modern data center looks clean from the outside. It has trees, has neat walls, and a modern facade. But inside its digital gut, another image emerges. Massive power draws, heat, fuel backup systems, water cooling circulation, and a constant mechanical pulse, all of which have real-world consequences for nearby neighborhoods. The challenge before us then is not whether San Angelo should have legal planning and hosting such of a facility. The test is whether San Angelo will govern it with enforceable legal planning structures or allow it to operate largely by default. There are 4 fundamental structural decisions that largely drive that particular outcome. First is enforceability. If these guidelines remain within a planning document, they are aspirations. They are not safeguards. Council should direct staff to incorporate them as necessary into the zoning ordinance or other binding mechanisms so they become enforceable so that they can be applied citywide and where legally feasible, attached to already approved projects. Second is timing. If the required noise study, lighting assessment, buffering, and circulation drawings are postponed to an administrative site plan process, the proposed conditional use public hearing becomes procedural rather than substantively informative to the process. These decisions for support materials should be reviewed publicly at the conditional use hearing and before approval. Durability is the third. Standards must be quantified and durable. Low-frequency noise analysis, closed-loop water requirements, groundwater testing, buffer maintenance, step-back height limits, which would be necessary for a 75-foot building, and megawatt-based capacity governance publicly reviewed ahead of approval so that incremental corrective approvals do not reshape the city over time, which generates uncertainty and instability in relation to the project. Fourth is sequencing. The current data center standards draft specifies a detailed noise modeling and lighting photometrics will be submitted later at a planning stage. In short, transparency before approval is fundamentally different from review after approval. Round Rock's recent data center approval demonstrates that enforceable quantitative standards can be adopted through zoning tools without defaulting to a Chapter 380 structures, and Angelo can do the same. These land use protections should neither be part of nor hinge on a Chapter 380 agreement. A 380 is an economic incentive contract. A city's zoning laws govern land use. Therefore, if these guardrails matter, put them in code. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Number 2, Heather.
Steph Baca.
I don't think she was here earlier.
She wasn't. Wade Mayer.
Wade Meyer from Karen's district. I grew up here, and I'm old enough to remember when San Angelo got the Fickle Finger of Fate Award twice in the 70s for building a pipeline to a dry lake. And then I believe it was in the last decade, we were down to like 90 days of water, if I'm not mistaken. I wasn't living here, but I heard about it, so I don't know if that's true or not. So that was a great presentation by Aaron, but it didn't talk about the two most important things, which is water and energy. I've read a lot of stuff, and I'm not here to say all that. I'm neither for or against this. What I'm for is the city of San Angelo and the cost of living and how it would affect the citizens of San Angelo.
So Wade, are we talking about construction guidelines here, or are you giving some philosophy and opinions? Because this agenda item, as we talked at the very first, needs to be about the construction guidelines with suggestions.
So guidelines, I guess, include quality of life, and that's kind of what these guidelines are doing.
We were talking construction guidelines. Brandon, I'm going to look for you for guidance.
Oh, it has to be construction guidelines.
Well,
Yes.
maybe calling them guidelines at this point because we're proposing something to council, but the intent is that this would be in the zoning ordinance as we've discussed this schedule for going to planning commission and to city council. I mean, the conditional use process is a zoning process, so that has to be by ordinance. But yes, we've referred to them as guidelines for purposes of this presentation to council.
Are we legal?
I'm sorry?
Are we legal?
To
With what
discuss,
he's-
yeah, absolutely.
okay.
I mean, we've presented it on the agenda as a discussion item for
Go
these
ahead,
guidelines.
and you've got your time. You've still got your
Well,
time.
so are you saying that water use and energy use would not be in the guidelines?
Well, we were looking for construction suggestions and input on what we need to do to improve our construction or make guidelines. Go ahead, feel free, go on.
Okay, so, and one of the things that, I mean, there are lots of, I mean, I've heard they're building a great big one further out in West Texas that is going to use so much energy, you could power the state of Rhode Island. But it's not, the thing that keeps going through my mind is why here? First of all, these things need to be cooled, and they use a lot of energy. And water seems to be the way to cool it, but why would you build these in a 100-degree area where we have multiple triple-digit days? Why don't they go build these in Alaska? Now, I'm not against this because I would like to see our city prosper and get some taxes from it, right? But I also don't want, and there are other experts that are saying that these things may be getting out ahead of themselves, and there's going to be a bunch of them are going to fail until the rest of it catches up. So what happens if this place turns into a ghost town? And I only ask that because I read something about a tax abatement. Does that mean that we delay the taxes? So what if they go out of business before we get collected?
Again,
That's
discussion
not
of
in the
tax
guidelines?
abatement,
Okay, I'm
it's
getting
not
too far
part
off.
of this discussion yet.
Okay, so, you covered noise but water pollution, I mean, and then when the energy in this state, to me, is, scarcity is rewarded. In other words, when there's less energy and more people want it, it costs more. And these things, from what I've read, are energy, they say, but they're also, I think in Texas, they ask the data centers to cut back sometimes, and then that means they turn on their generators and they may run for a day or two. In that one winter Armageddon we had, they would have been running for 5 or 6 days, and that's either natural gas or diesel running, generators running the whole time. Also, electronic waste. Are we going to put it in our waste?
Thank you, Wade.
China Young.
Hello again, Mayor and Council members. China Young, Single Member District 4. In the context of tonight's discussion and direction regarding design guidelines and conditional use processes, I do want to address again how meaningful participation depends on enforceable standards that define the project's true limits. Public comment is an important component of participation, but meaningful participation requires that citizens understand the data center structural choices facing them. In this context, Round Rock, their recent data center actions provides a clear reference point for us. They recently codified developmental standards, measurable caps, buffering, cooling requirements, and amendment protections within zoning. Those standards define what the data center project in that community can and cannot become. And San Angelo now faces a similar structural decision. Economic incentives may address cost sharing, but zoning determines the physical impact on surrounding neighborhoods and infrastructure. By embedding enforceable limits directly into zoning, this council can provide durable clarity, reduce future conflict, and demonstrate responsiveness to community concerns. Specifically restricting the data center to what we have been told it would be, a data storage center, so that it would not suddenly transition to an AI or cryptocurrency mining data center could be part of those guidelines. In good faith negotiations, Skybox agreed to these standards in Round Rock. San Angelo can adopt a similar structure or framework, including any opportunities for the public to participate in developing those policies to ensure the citizens have the knowledge they need for peace of mind are welcome and encouraged. These policy decisions would demonstrate a clear commitment to good governance and not an opposition to growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, China.
Russell Gully.
Russell Gully, 706 South Abe Street, Mayor, Council. In reading this, and Aaron touched on it, 3,000 square feet. I guess we qualify as a data center. And so many businesses are going to now qualify as data centers. Is that really the intent of this? So I think the fear of these data centers is they're extremely large scale. So maybe that 3,000 square feet needs to be 50 or 100,000 square feet. So if we're looking specifically at the standards, my encouragement would be that number needs to move up so we don't catch all of us small people that are just trying to operate and run a business here. So my ask is that number moves 50, 100,000 somewhere, and then certainly need to keep an exception for Shannon because they really are a data center. Looking through it, flipping over through your landscaping, I'm hearing all of this concern about water consumption. this landscaping usage is probably more intense and going to require more water than what the facility will require once it's started up. So be careful about what you do for the landscaping. We're out on the edge of the Chihuahuan Desert here, so let's maybe see, and we can scale back a little bit on some of our landscaping requirements. There was some verbiage in there that the Planning Development Services can request at any time a noise study. So I guess he could go out there every day and say, noise study today, noise study tomorrow, and the next day, and every day. So maybe that needs to be scaled back to maybe once a year or something. Maybe look at that. If your desire is to encourage a data center to go elsewhere, that's what these standards will do. They will require a data center to go and look outside the city limits of San Angelo. They are very cumbersome, and I realize guardrails and protections are needed. You just approved a rail yard that's going to be more impactful than what a data center would be potentially with that. So I think there being a need for a conditional use in these zoning districts, I don't believe that's necessary. These zoning districts, go look at what's happening in these zoning districts currently. A data center is nowhere near intensive use probably as what's happening in some of these current zoning districts. So I don't know that conditional use is the right thing. If you're wanting to encourage a data center to come to San Angelo, let's scale this back and let's look at what really protects San Angelo and its citizens. So thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
That concludes public comment.
Number 6, and there's no more. Aaron? Could we bring up our Chief Project Officer, Rick Weiss? I've been waiting to pull the trigger on that from the word go. All night. Okay, Rick, we put this on here to give people some input, and you were very stern over the last 30, 45 days about letting people have input on the guidelines that you've seen here. Have what you've seen provided the input that you think for the first round of input, and is there a place to provide additional rounds of input as we move forward?
Right. So, yes, this was perfect. The intent was to have the discussion, to gather public input as well as from y'all to give staff direction. So I think y'all kind of gave it as we went along. If there's something you didn't mention, we'd love to hear that now so we can add it to our notes. And then what we'll do is take that and draft the policies a little differently from what we heard tonight. And then the next step will be to take those to the Planning Commission and have this same discussion again based on a final draft of what we would propose. So if there's anything else y'all can think of as we've had this discussion you want to share with us tonight, please do so we can incorporate that.
All right, so is there a way for if the public wants to contribute some more other than tonight, can they contribute more or additional things, or are we putting the cap on it tonight?
Really, they can, they can contact me. We need that pretty quick because we're fixing to turn around and start putting that information into what would go to the Planning Commission. But I will say that at the Planning Commission, they can also give input. They can alter just because we're bringing a draft to the Planning Commission doesn't mean it has to be approved as we're bringing it. So they can also come at that meeting and say, if there's something and the Planning Commission agrees, then we can make those alterations as a suggestion coming from there before they come back to you. So that would be the best place to bring it.
And going back to Aaron's first statement, there's almost 5 places to make input as something was to move through the guidelines from conditional use all the way through planning. So there's 5 opportunities to make, adjust, mend, bend, whatever we need to do. So number one, I want to thank you for doing this. I think it's important, and we'll stick to this agenda guidelines. But with that, I'll open it up to the dais. Any questions, Mary? Ms. Karen?
Can those of you presenting tonight confirm to us that the conditions placed on the data center ordinance in Round Rock were scrutinized carefully before you produced this document for us?
you want to speak to that, but they looked at a variety of ones. I can't say Round Rock was scrutinized, extremely, but.
It's been brought up repeatedly, so I just
Right,
would
right. We
like
did
to
actually,
hear more about that.
we did look through Round Rock's ordinance. There were not a whole lot of, examples of ordinances around the country that regulated data centers specifically. A lot of communities just regulate data centers through their existing code. They might have a landscape ordinance, a noise ordinance that are all separate from that, and industrial standards. But I'll just repeat what Aaron mentioned at the beginning of his presentation. We had 2 ordinances from Virginia that has seen a lot of data center development over recent years. We looked at Glen Heights. That was a planned development, a PD. We looked at Round Rock, and that was a planned development. And we looked at the City of Irving's ordinance. That was a conditional use permit process. So I had created a matrix of those 5 different ordinances and looked at things like that are in the proposed ordinance: setbacks, noise, lighting, building height, landscaping. I think I mentioned a lot, off-street parking. Those types of things that are in this proposed language, we sliced and diced and compared, and we chose, we kind of lifted some of the language in those ordinances we thought were best fitting for this community, for San Angelo. So, and we pulled other regulations from different ordinances, different landscape and setback guidelines we see in Fort Worth or Mansfield or Burleson, Texas. So we've looked at more than just these 5 to bring in some of those regulations that we felt like would best address some of the concerns that the citizens had and the council had.
You may also notice as they went through that, some of the cities in the portions pertaining to data centers may not reference landscaping because they have their own landscape ordinance. They have those in other areas. So they had to go through each of those knowing that in some cases, and San Angelo didn't have any of that. So they're trying to pull that in and incorporate it because we don't have a landscape ordinance. So we're trying to incorporate those kind of things as well as others that aren't referenced necessarily in ours.
Patrick?
On the landscape, a lot of what's been brought up is some of the same questions I've had, and I think some of it was put in there. This does not take away the option to zero-scape, things like that, right? To help conserve water if they wanted to do that?
Correct. So the type of plant materials was actually put together by Carl White, our Parks and Rec Director, so it's based on plant material that actually works here. I would strongly suggest as we go through these, I think it's going to make sense for the city to explore with whoever if there's a data center there, we've got a water treatment plant out there. Are we going to try to get them to use gray water that goes back into this area? We've also got to reserve, and this is something I can talk to Shane about, certain areas for discharge for the city. Well, can we take some of that discharge area and reallocate it along this landscape area where we're using some of that? And so there's creative ways like that, I think, that can actually help us at the end of the day. But, as we go through, those are things we'll have to explore as we're doing it. I think that's the intent.
We talked about the principal use makes most sense to me, at least looking at it. But on that, would someone be allowed to skirt the system and say build a 2 million square foot warehouse and 990,000 is data center and the other part they use is a warehouse, and so it's not considered a principal use data center? Does that make sense? Could they skirt the system?
I think I understand your question, but my first answer is no, I don't believe so. With the multiple review processes that they would have to go through, and they have to submit a floor plan and all of those things. And so while, yes, there can be shell buildings built, they still have to come back for a certificate of occupancy for what they actually are. And that involves city staff going in and doing an inspection of what are they from fire marshal, from building permits. Planning will be out there for the site. Engineering services will be looking at water sewer connections, all those things. There's multiple folks looking to make sure that no one's trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
Yeah. Principal use or just quite a bit larger than the 3,000 square feet. Like I said, I think we already have some that are pushing that, and there's been no issues, and so, yeah. On on the lighting, and this is something I just heard today, but it's something I have thought about, and I brought it up to Shane when we talked about lighting. Dark skies compliant lighting was something that was brought up today. I think the ordinances that are talked about kind of basically already allude to that, so that no lighting is shining above the horizon of the light. I think that's something.
That is the intent, yes. Maybe that's a way that we need to just reword that part of that as we bring it forward in an ordinance, but we can certainly look at that.
And to the point of Russell, we don't want to run anybody off if we can, and that's with any business, right? We don't want to run businesses off because we have too many ordinances, too many restrictions on things that shouldn't matter as far as quality of life around it. So that's something that I feel like a lot of what was put in there already fits that, but if that could be vetted out a little bit. Are these guidelines where we need to put something about water usage? Do we need to have that cap so that any data centers going in the future knows that they can only use this much water to run their facilities?
I think that's actually a great suggestion. It's something I think we've talked about in the past. So I think we can do some research and confirm, what that amount is that, is reasonable for the facility and safeguards a little cushion, and maybe there's some language in there that also gives in some unique circumstance, they have the ability to come to council or whoever and request. But
I think with all the, not to do a pun, with all the data they have, they should know how much water they should be having to use. So
Exactly.
give them a little extra for, something crazy happened. Yeah,
Okay.
that seems like that would be something we could put in there. And then I think that would fix my other question about putting a different style of system. So as long as they're not using a crazy amount of water, then to me, it doesn't really matter the style, because the electricity's not really us. That'll have to be permitted, all that vetted out by ERCOT and AEP. But the waters, if we have put a cap on that, then there's only so much they could do.
I think another one I heard that y'all might be interested in was the limiting that from changing to some other use. I think I heard that one tonight, which I think I've heard y'all mention as well, so.
And that's where I don't know if we're gonna have that ability to, because Gabe's here, he talked about it the other day. Basically, they can do AI computing with the regular data centers. Like, there's really nothing that changed. It's the crypto mining uses more power, uses more water. So I think that's where that water use would kind of limit anything else that they could do.
And I guess we've kind of got that controlled because they can't, you've already limited them, like you said, on the water, you're limited on the noise, all these various things are going to control what they could change to.
And then on the building designs and setbacks and things like that, Eric, is that what you've seen predominantly in the other ones? Is that pretty close to their standards?
Right. Several of the ordinances were consistent in terms of the architectural, articulation of the building facade and the side and rear.
So it's not something that should run them off. Like, it's something that most of the data centers they've adapted to in other areas already.
Right. It seems to be that way, yes, from the ordinances we've reviewed.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on it. That's all I got.
Harry?
Just briefly, I want to say thank you to Aaron and Chief Projects, Rick Wise, and for reaching out to Westwood last year to get ahead of this curve. I think there's some opportunity for the citizens, if they still got concerns, to have a conversation with Aaron or Rick by the 1st of March, and then they can come to the Planning Commission, and then they can come back to the 2 city council meetings if they got questions. I think we're way ahead of the curve on this, and I think we'll be ready when a data center decides to come here.
Mr. Sell?
Reiterate what he said. Good job. I do agree with Mr. Goley. We need to probably increase the square footage. And one example that I know of personally is 2320 Sunset Drive. It's Sunset Knickerbocker. ASU owns it now, but that's been a data center for 30 plus years, right in our backyard that nobody even knew about. 4 generators there, sitting there, a cooling tower. Nobody knew about it. Nobody ever had a problem about it, right in the middle of town. So that being said, we also need to set those parameters, but still be open to getting them to come. So that's my only good job. And we can limit the use of water. That doesn't mean they can't go get a tanker truck next door outside the city limits and bring more water in. But it does limit what we expose ourselves to. So I think that's a good idea as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Hebert?
Good.
Excuse me?
I'm good.
All right. To sum it up, consensus was thank you for the input. Appreciate it. There were suggestions that Patrick brought up that came from the data center skybox people today. I mean, they have a lot of suggestions about things that we can add to the construction guidelines. You know, they've built things from the West Coast to the East Coast. I don't think at lunch, I asked them if they had heard or seen anything today that they hadn't seen already, and they were no. And it didn't seem to bother them either way. I mean, the rules were the rules. And we set forward with that with the 380. So, number one, we'll draw this to the close. So, Brandon, let me, at this point, do we close this? We don't have to take a vote on anything, correct?
Nope, no vote. If there's nothing further, then I think we just go on to executive.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. All right, we're going to move into closed session. Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551072, deliberations about real property regarding 605 Rio Concho Drive. And B, Section 551072, deliberations about real property regarding 70 East 43rd. Section C, 551-071, consultation with attorney regarding plating and zoning issues related to the July 4th flood disaster. We're going to go into executive session for probably about, I'm not going to say. Every time I say that, it's twice as long. We're going to executive session. Order on item number 8, follow-up and administrative issues. Consider items discussed in executive session if needed. None is needed. Item B, consider approving various board nominations. Civic Events Advisory Board, Michelle Garcia, SMD4, to an unexpired term ending December 2027. Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals, Michael Spencer, SMD1, to a third term ending February 2028. Economic Development Corporation, Lorenzo Lassiter, SMD1, to a second term ending February 2028. Fort Concho Museum Board, Michael Powers, SMD4, to a second term ending January 2028. With that, I'll look for a motion on all those appointments. I have a first from Tommy and a second from Mary Coffey. There you go. My phone seconded it. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. All appointments in A and items B passed 7-0. Item C, announcements and considerations for future agenda items. Anything from the dais? Anything over here? All right, so I have a motion to adjourn from Tommy Hebert. Do I have a second, Mary? Yes. And I have a second from Mary. Let's go home. Meeting's closed.